Councillor Gates, can we have a motion for an adoption of the minutes? Moved by Councillor Maves, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All in favor? Just 1 second. Hold there.
There's just one minor amendment to the minutes. It was pointed out that the mover and the seconder on the NCC deferral was incorrect. Councillor Morocco was the mover and Councillor Gates was the seconder. So we'll make those changes so the minutes will be approved as amended.
Okay. The mover and seconder okay with the amendment? Okay. All in favor? Okay. It's unanimous. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Maves?
Check number 343070. That's my place of employment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carriel?
Thank you, Worship. 201017 Niagara Convention Civic Center. Discussion about the lease. I'm a board of director. 201105 review of rates for sidewalk cafes. I have one.
Okay, thank you very much. We got that. Councillor Morocco.
Yes, Your Worship. Check number 342514 is made out to my spouse.
Okay. Are there any other?
I have.
Oh, and Councillor Peter Angelo.
Thank you, Worship. PD 2011-08. My parents' land joins this property.
Okay. It's noted. Any other conflicts? Okay, moving on to planning matters. First planning matter, I'd ask the clerk to introduce the next item on the agenda.
Your Worship, the city sign bylaw allows for variances or amendments to the bylaw. An applicant may appeal the refusal of a variance by the planning director to council. If approved, the variance will then be treated as an amendment to the bylaw. Therefore, a public meeting is now being convened to consider an electronic video sign that exceeds the regulations in the bylaw at 3690 Portage Road. Notice was given not less than 20 days before the day of the public meeting to all registered owners of property within 120 meters of the property in question, any appropriate agency or authority, and by posting a sign on the property in question. Council's decision on this amendment is final and binding.
Okay. I'd like to ask the planning director, Mr. Hurlovich, to explain the purpose and the reason for the amendment to the sign bylaw, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This proposal is to permit a electronic video sign on the side of McCullough Dental Group. The building is pictured in front of you, and the sign is actually the large black square that you see at the rear of the building, and it faces towards the Sobeys parking lot. The property is located on the east side of Portage Road, just south of Keith Street, and as I pointed out, it abuts the Sobeys parking lot area. The properties along Portage Road are predominantly commercial in nature. Town and Country Plazas to the west. To the east of these properties are a number of residential properties. We did receive one letter of communication from a property owner in support of the sign. The building in question is formerly a house but now a commercial building, and the sign is at the back of that building on the south wall, and the request is to have an electronic video sign of 5.02 square meters, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum area of 1.8 square meters. The official plan requires that we pass bylaws that have signs that would not have a negative impact on the area or have any distraction for traffic or safety issues. The proposed sign is well back from the street, and it's away from motorists and pedestrians, and therefore we believe is not a safety issue. The sign bylaw, again, regulates the size of signs for public safety purposes, and it places a limit on electronic video signs. The proposed sign is to advertise only those services conducted within the McCullough Group property. The proposed sign replaces a previous sign that was located on that wall. It faces onto a parking lot, and it's an update in the technology. So therefore, we've concluded that the sign does meet the intent of the official plan. It's located away from the Portage Road and any distractions it might pose. faces into a parking lot, and it replaces a previous sign on that wall. Therefore, we're recommending that Council approve the sign bylaw amendment application as outlined in the report. There is a bylaw on tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Hurlovich. Are there any questions of council? Okay, seeing none, council will hear from anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the proposed sign bylaw amendment. Is there anyone other than the applicant that would speak to the sign bylaw amendment? Okay, seeing none, council will now hear from the applicant or his or her representative. Is the applicant in the room? Okay. Councilor Thompson? Okay, we'll close. All right. No questions at this point? All right. The public meeting with respect to the proposed sign bylaw is now concluded. No further submissions, either pro or con, can be allowed. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Yes, I do. This is an improvement in technology. It's a trend that we're going to see many times in the future. It faces onto a parking lot, should have no negative impact on anybody, and I would move the motion for approval.
Okay, and do we have a seconder? Councilor Pietrangelo, any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Yes, Councilor Ainon. Oh, thank you. All right, next planning item, zoning bylaw amendment. I'd ask the city clerk to introduce the next item on the agenda, please.
Your Worship, a public meeting is now being convened to consider a proposed amendment to the city zoning bylaw to convert an existing hotel into a retirement home at 4067 River Road and 4327 Ferguson Street. Notice was given by first-class mail in accordance with the Planning Act on December 17, 2010, and by posting a sign on the property in question. Anyone who wants notice of the passage of the zoning bylaw amendment to participate in any site plan process, if applicable, or preserve their opportunity to appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board shall leave their name on the sign-in sheets outside the council chamber.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I now ask the Director of Planning to explain the purpose and reason for the bylaw amendment.
Thank you, Worship. The proposal is to convert the existing Quality Inn hotel on River Road at Ferguson Street into a retirement residence. There are actually two parcels involved. One is parcel 1, which is the property that faces onto River Road at Ferguson. It's the site of the 4-story hotel. The second parcel is a property on Ferguson Street at Glenview Avenue, which is currently used for parking for the hotel. The applicant also owns some additional lands adjacent to the parcel 2, which are also used for parking, but are not part of this application. To the east of this property is the Niagara River and Gorge. There are tourist commercial uses fronting onto River Road north and south of this property. There are residential properties to the west of the subject property. The site, there are two site plans, of course, for the two properties that are involved. So the first is for the hotel building. So in addition to rezoning these lands from tourist commercial to institutional to permit the nursing home use, the applicant is also seeking certain adjustments to the setback requirements. These setback requirements, while exactly right for a motel in the tourist commercial zone, are undersized for the retirement home. Because it's an existing situation, the application is to recognize those. There is one proposed change, and that is there's some additional, if I can make this work, green space that's being proposed behind the hotel that doesn't exist now. This would be an amenity area for the residents of the retirement home, and there's a proposed gazebo. That gazebo is to be located 0.8 meters off the property line. The other property is for the parking lot. The property would be zoned P. It currently is zoned P, in fact, for parking. The proposed application would tie that parking lot into this retirement home, which currently it's not tied to the hotel property. Relief from the landscape requirements. There is a 1.5 meter landscape strip around most of the property. We are recommending that that be retained, as well as the decorative wall that's around the parking lot. And there's a 2.5 meter landscape strip along the north side. We're recommending that that also be retained. The applicant is proposing, as I mentioned, to convert the 96-room hotel into a nursing home. For that, they require the I-zone, as well as the additional changes to the provisions of the zoning bylaw, and Parcel 2 as well, to recognize the parking and the specific site standards for landscaping on that property. Prior to this meeting, we held a neighborhood open house. 6 residents attended. Generally, most were of the opinion that there would be the retirement home would be a good use, that would have less impact than the tourist commercial use that currently exists. There were a number of residents that were concerned about the amount of lighting that would be available in that parking lot, and they were also concerned about drainage of the off-site parking lot. Those are both site plan issues and would be subject to the site plan agreement, which will be dealt with after the rezoning of the property. The official plan designates the lands tourist commercial. There are policies in the tourist commercial designation that allow for lands that are in excess of demand to be converted for residential purposes. The retirement home is considered to be a residential use, and it is compatible with the surrounding area. We did not find that the removal of these lands from the inventory of tourist commercial uses would have any significant effect. The massing and height of the hotel was designed when it was originally built to be compatible with the single-family neighborhood to the west, and there are no changes with that. Again, site-specific zoning, and it outlines exactly what a retirement home is. Primarily, it's a residence for people with limited physical disabilities who require some assistance, and it does provide for a common lounge and dining hall, as well as providing optional medical care facilities. The applicant has requested a parking standard of 0.6 parking spaces per living unit. This is the same standard that we have applied to other retirement homes in the city, so it's a logical extension of the standard that we've already been using. Again, we're going to tie the parking to the retirement home so that the two must be used in conjunction with one another. I've already covered off the specifics about the setbacks for the building and the landscaping. Both parcels consist of a number of lots within a plan of subdivision. This does create an issue from a zoning standpoint, and so therefore the applicant has also requested that we pass a deeming bylaw tonight that would remove the registered plan lots, and that would then treat all of the lots as large parcels, 2 large parcels for zoning purposes. Therefore, we have concluded that the proposal does conform with the official plan. The retirement home will be compatible with the surrounding residential uses without any negative impact on the tourist commercial uses, and the parking for the hotel is currently off-site, and the continuation of that parking should not have any increased impacts. Therefore, we are recommending that the application be approved as requested, and that the council pass the 2 deeming bylaws to determine that the lots are no longer lots in a plan of subdivision. Those are the highlights.
Thank you, Mr. Urlovich. Are there any questions from council members? We've got Councilor Morocco.
Yes, Your Worship. I'm glad to see that it is going to be turned into a retirement home. I think that's a great opportunity, as there's always a waiting list for our seniors to get into a support living home or housing development for them. Just a couple of questions. There's no parking on site, or did I miss that? Could you?
Sorry, I apologize to the council. There is some parking here. So there's some parking underneath the front of the building. Again, if I can try and get this pointer to work. So there's some parking underneath the building here, so people enter the building. There's some parking in this location. There's some parking at the back of the building, and otherwise the balance of the parking is off-site.
Oh, okay, so there is, actually, it looked like there was only the parking lot across the street, and I thought that was quite a challenge for seniors to be
Yes.
walking that distance, and the lighting. I could support this as long as they do keep in some greenery around the building. I think that's important as
Yes.
well. Okay, thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, members of the public are advised that failure to make an oral or written submission at this public meeting will result in the Ontario Municipal Board dismissing any referrals it receives. Failure to sign the sign-in sheet will result in staff rejecting an appeal as per Section 3419 of the Planning Act. Council will now hear from anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaw amendment. Is there anyone other than the applicant that would like to address the council? Okay, seeing none, council will now hear from the applicant or his or her representative. Welcome, sir. If you could please state your name.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. My name is Jim D'Angelo, and I'm the agent for the Singh family. If there's any questions, I can take any questions.
Any questions of council? No? Okay. Sounds good. Thank you very much. The public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is now concluded. Councillor Thompson?
Yes, this is hopefully a trend we're not going to see a lot more of, but it sends a message that tourism isn't as vibrant as it used to be. And I think this is a downgrade in zoning compared to the hotel, and I think this is appropriate and probably an asset for the community. I would move the motion for approval.
Okay, motion by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Iannone. Any comments? All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, next up, miscellaneous planning matters. We've got an appeal of the Committee of Adjustment decision. Maybe our Director of Planning, if he wanted to make comment before we bring up the applicant.
Yes, Your Worship. I don't have a presentation for this. The property is a 4-acre property on the south side of Bigger Road, west of Montrose Road. And the applicant, or the owner, submitted an application to our Committee of Adjustment proposing to sever the 4-acre lot into two 2-acre lots. The property is located outside of the urban area boundary and is considered by the official plan to be good general agricultural lands. The provincial government, the regional government, and our own official plan preclude the severance of agricultural lands. We're required to have our official plan comply with both the upper tier documents. Therefore, we're bound to make a recommendation to the committee that it be denied. The two lots are actually undersized. The minimum lot area in that particular part of the city is 3 acres. Each parcel would be 2 acres in size, so therefore they have applied for a minor variance with the Committee of Adjustment for 2-acre size lots, and the Committee of Adjustment approved both the severance and the minor variance. Because they didn't comply with the official plan, the region's policy plan, or the provincial plan, and the date of appeal came up before this council could meet. Staff submitted an appeal to the Secretary-Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment, objecting to the decision, asking that be referred to the board, and that the purpose today is to seek council's confirmation that staff either pursue an appeal before the Ontario Municipal Board or withdraw our appeal as council wishes. I would just end by saying that we have received another appeal on this property from the regional municipality of Niagara. So they have concerns about the further division of lands in the agricultural community. So they too, again, are much in the way that Staff have made the appeal. They will be seeking their regional council's direction as to whether or not the appeal will move forward to the Ontario Municipal Board. So those are the issues at hand.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hurlovich. We've got Councillor Iannone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Hurlovich. As we're reworking our official plan, would the applicant comply with our new reworkings?
Good question.
No, because their land's outside of the urban area. Actually, in fact, the urban boundary runs down the middle of Bigger Road. North side of Bigger Road, this would have been allowed. The south side, it's not allowed. But because the province says we must protect agricultural lands, we're bound to bring we can't change our plan to bring severance policies into place.
Okay, Councillor Iannone.
And that was my next question. He says he's bound to make the recommendation. If you were looking at it without having to follow the upper two tiers, would this have been the recommendation they would have willingly give? When you're bound, you have to follow the other two. So I was kind of interested in that.
So, Mr. Hurlovich, so what you're saying is, because of our official plan, you're bound to take the position that you are currently.
Yes, but I think we'd be looking at other aspects, and certainly the fragmentation of lands in the rural area of the city does bring with it additional concerns, so that school bus pickup, policing, moving non-farm residents into an agricultural community where noise, odors, dust can be an issue. Those are all conflicts with that. So there's some other aspects that all weigh into this. But given that the question is hypothetical, then I guess we could have supported it, but there are those other issues.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much. Any other? Yeah, Councillor Carrio.
Ready for motion?
No, we're not ready quite yet. We've got Mr. Sinclair is asked to address the council. Do you want to come forward, Mr. Sinclair?
Your Honor, members of council, it's nice to be here for the first council meeting of the new council. Welcome. They did a hell of a job downstairs. It's beautiful. Beautiful. Looks really nice. This particular application was brought by Danny Petrangelo. I just point out to you that where his house is, there's 5 or 6 other houses right in the area, and so this is strictly an infilling situation. We comply with the zoning bylaw, save and except we only have 2 acres rather than 3 acres. As you know, in Willoughby, most of Willoughby, there's a subdivision, for example, I'm involved in, that's 2 to 5 acres, and some of Willoughby is only, you don't even need 2 acres. I did one severance recently with 1.36 acres, so it's all over the place. But 2 acres is certainly sufficient. Danny's been there for 31 years. These houses have been there a long time, and I sent you a little bit of a memo on it. Basically, what you have here, in my opinion, is really a hamlet, or really a little community, a community in itself, between Montrose Road and Meisner Road. Meisner Road is an unopened road lot. It's down a little bit from Mr. Petrangelo's house. And basically, what you have in this whole area, except you have a house, you have a club right in the corner of Montrose Road and Bigger Road in the corner, right in the corner. But the rest of it has been split up a long time ago. And you have really a settlement area here. And once you get a settlement area, under the provincial policy statement, which the provincial policy statement says this land's prime farmland, really that's probably questionable, but it takes it out of the prime farm area once you get a settlement. And this went before the Committee of Adjustment. And they bought the idea that it was a settlement area, because if you look at it, I drove up on it again today, and the other side, Carl Road, there's a lot of houses too. There's the same thing. So this little, between Carl Road and Meisner Road, and between Carl and Bigger, really you've got a settlement area. It's not farm. It will never be farm. If you go further to the west, obviously you're going to get farmland. And if I've been offered many, many times, people want me to bring applications in farmland, where you get 100 acres, they want me to sever 5 acres or something like that. I will not do it. But where it makes sense, absolutely makes total sense, that where you get an infilling situation such as this, each individual situation, in my opinion, should be looked at its own merits. I think a severance is warranted. I think we comply with the zoning bylaw, even accept the variance. You've got a farmer, I've talked to, and I talked to this farmer too. He said you'd never, ever, ever farm this particular property. They can't even turn the equipment around. It's not wide enough. And 2 acres, they're never going to farm 2 acres. They're never going to farm anything in this particular area. So it's been taken out of farmland by severances or by divides under a will or by cases like Geraci and Thompson. But it's changed. This particular area has changed. And it is a settlement. It's been a settlement. Severances are permitted. And this is something that there was a case that some of you may be aware of that went for 3.5 weeks before the Ontario Municipal Board. It was appealed to the Superior Court, and it was the city and the region tried to say that, and I think they were quite correct in doing this, they tried to say, look, let us in this area, in the Willoughby area, in some of this area, the whole area, let's have small little areas of subdivisions so we can control the proliferation of severances. Well, they lost the case. Unfortunately, they lost the case. You people know about that. I think most of you know about that. And the region says the same thing. So really we're back in the situation, really if you look at it, we're back in the situation where we've got a proliferation of severances permitted under the growth plan. In other words, they were trying to get rid of that. They didn't. So I think when you look at this, it's an infilling situation. It's a unique situation. It's never going to be farmed. I got the affidavit of the farmer in there, and I took a long time with him. This is not good farmland. He'd never farmed this area. So I think that the severance is something that should go through. Obviously, the city's got to take a position that they take because their official plan says this, but I don't think they're really that strong on it. But from a practical point of view, if you look at it, you study the area, which the Committee of Adjustment did, and they unanimously, everyone voted yes on the appeal, or on the decision to sever it, and on the Committee of Adjustment. Victor Vitrangelo he has a bit of a conflict, obviously, and he didn't vote, but everybody else voted 100% for it.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I don't have any questions because I'm totally familiar with this area over the last 30-some-odd years or maybe more. This is predominantly owned, all of the whole quadrant there, by one family. They've been there for years. They have had the opportunity to try to farm some of the property. Obviously, a 2-acre piece of property is not one that you would try to attempt to farm, and I feel some sympathy for the planners when they come in here every time and they try to indicate that a 2-acre or 1-acre piece of property is it has to be retained for farm agricultural purposes. It doesn't make any sense. If we had have continued with the consolidation of our zoning bylaw in this particular area, one side of the street is 2 acres, the other side of the street is 3 acres, so it depends on what side of the street. There's no strong rationale for that. The health department has given an indication that this is acceptable for a private sewage system. The vote at the Committee of Adjustment was unanimous, and I think it's quite obvious that there are some challenges with the senior level of government with this, but I think this council actually endorsed a resolution and a report asking that there be some development in the rural area where there was not appropriate farmland. And that's most of the Willoughby and Crowland area. So at the appropriate time, I think all we're looking for here is to not object to the severance of the Committee of Adjustment, which was unanimously supported. So I would move that at the appropriate time.
Okay. Councilor Morocco, did you have a comment? No? Any other comments or questions? Councilor Wing.
Sure. I always support the staff on principle on these sort of matters. I just don't have it in me to go against the provincial policy statement, the provincial growth plan, the regional policy plan, or our official plan. I mean, those are all laws. They're there for a reason, and I just don't see good reason to thumb my nose at them on this. I know that area can be used for agriculture. I talked to somebody in the recent past who told me about the grain crops, which is a particular type of grain crop which grows well in those sort of soils because those soils hold water, and of course they were farmed in the past. So, you know, as far as viability of farming goes, no, you're not going to farm just 2 acres, but if you've got 2 acres joined to another 2 acres and another 2 acres, I mean, you start to get, when they're accumulated, a sizable enough section to farm. I don't buy the argument that this is a settlement because, as it's pointed out in Mr. Sinclair's letter, this area is totally controlled by one family, and the group, he's kindly given us some definitions of settlement from online, and you know, they basically say an area where a group of families live together. It's where a group of families, plural families, not one family group. So I don't quite buy the settlement argument. I have problems with this on principle, especially amidst growing public concerns about food sovereignty, and it's not quite the big chorus we hear now about eating locally or the 100-mile diet or that, but there is growing public concern about food sovereignty. And if the majority of our food is produced offshore, what are the implications for national security? I mean, we're losing capacity, we're losing control of the capacity to feed ourselves. And I don't know, to me it's kind of frightening to think that we're at the mercy of foreign nations when it comes to our ability to eat. So I have problems with not maintaining the integrity and the cohesion of agricultural lands. And on principle, I support what the staff are recommending.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Wing. We've got Mr. Beeman, our solicitor, wanted to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, speaking to you through the mayor, just the one crucial thing the council should be aware of before they vote is simply that the matter of law, the council is always supposed to vote in accordance with its official plan. So that a vote not to support this appeal is a vote contrary to the official plan. Point that out to you as your order. The other thing council may consider, and this came up in one of the questions earlier on, council can vote contrary to its official plan if it at the same time is looking at amending the official plan to permit the activity that it just engaged in. So that's a situation where you have a major rezoning and the official plan needs to be changed to accommodate that rezoning, that type of thing. So you may want to consider, this is the second time this matter has come up. I think overall there seems to be an interest in examining the policies in this area. And so I would suggest that if there is an interest in that, council might want to include that in its, and indeed council wants to endorse this withdrawal of this appeal, they might do so, and at the same time instruct us as staff to look into what we could do about the official plan if council is finding this pattern of applications in this area being appealed not to council's satisfaction. So I'm just putting that out as a possibility that council could consider when it makes its vote on this particular matter.
Okay, thank you. So are you suggesting an official plan amendment?
I'm suggesting that they ask us to look at it. Given
Right.
provincial policies, we may come back and be unable to assist in that regard without a major appeal that's going to cost a lot of money. But on the other hand, we might as well have a look if council is so inclined. That's just my
Great, thank you very much. Councilor Carriel, then Councilor Morocco.
I don't mind doing that after what our lawyer is suggesting, having a look at it, but common sense has to prevail. I'm sure that if we designate this split, that we're not going to go on a world famine. I think we still have enough property around to grow whatever we need to grow. Common sense should prevail. We all know that you cannot farm 2 acres, 4 acres, 6 acres. I have some parcels of land. The farmers are telling me unless you've got 100 acres of land, it's not worth even considering farming. So these things are way in the future. I think that the governing body should be the health department, not the other two levels of government. I think that we should listen to our committee of adjustment in cases like this. And I really believe that the staff has to do what they're doing.
Yes.
But I think that it's up to us to find out what makes sense and do the right thing. And the right thing is not to appeal this to the Ontario Municipal Board. Let this be divided into two-acre parcels of land, and let's move on.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Morocco.
Your Worship, just to that point, it's exactly how I feel as well. I think that this is not farmable. And yes, we do support agriculture and locally grown product, but I think that's something when you look at 50 acres as not just 2 or 4 acres. But so I don't want to repeat what's already been said, but I support this severance.
Okay. Well, if there's no other comment, then I'll entertain the motion. It was Councilor Thompson.
Withdraw the motion and would include the comments of the solicitor. But we've already done that. We've had proposals for rural development which have been turned down by the province. So whether we'd have any success with that, but sounds good at the time.
Okay, so you're making a motion against the recommendation. Withdraw the appeal. Motion to withdraw the appeal and for staff to further investigate amendments to our official plan in this regard. Seconded by Councillor Carriot. Any discussion? All those in favor? And opposed? Okay, one opposed. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Sinclair.
Your Worship, I just wonder if the region has appealed this. It would be certainly very helpful to me if you people would sort of write a letter to or do something with the region, if you'd write a letter to them, maybe just telling them that you have withdrawn the appeal and suggesting that they do likewise.
You can do that, staff.
Okay. Our staff are going to... Pardon me?
Do you have a motion to that effect?
We'll ask the clerk.
Staff can do that. We can forward that to the region between Mr. Hurlovich and I. We can let them know what the decision of this council was so that their council has it when they consider the matter.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, and once you get the letter, you can hand it to the mayor, and he can carry the ball to the region, which is where it's going to be debated next time.
That's right. I'll save a stamp and I'll bring it myself. All right.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Mr. Sinclair.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next miscellaneous planning matter, PD 2011-06, Fernwood Phase 3 Draft Plan of Subdivision Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application. And first off, I'd like to ask our clerk to speak to the matter.
Yeah, Your Worship, you'll recall this was at Council on December 13th. The statutory public meeting under the Planning Act took place that evening and was held and closed, so staff is of the opinion that the public meeting has already taken place and that you do not need to entertain the public on this. We're also, before you deal with it, and I know Mr. Hurlovich does have a brief presentation on it, we're asking that Council pass the first resolution in your resolution package, which is that the changes to the application are minor in nature and therefore no advertising of the public meeting was necessary.
Okay. I understand, Mr. Hurlovich, you have a presentation for us tonight.
Well, first, if you can take that.
Oh, the resolution?
The resolution, please. Yeah.
Okay, can I get a motion for the resolution? Councillor Iannone, seconded by Councillor Carriot. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, approved, unanimous. All right, Mr. Hurlovich.
Thank you, Worship. As the city clerk mentioned, the public meeting is closed. It's really to speak to the changes that the developer brought forward in this plan of subdivision. And everybody's familiar with where the property is. It's west of Garner Road, north of Lundy's Lane. There are a number of lots, lot 19 to 27, that are highlighted in a blue rectangle at the top left of the screen. These lots were lengthened in terms of the depth in order to provide some additional protection to the woodlot. You'll recall that at the last council meeting, the surveyor presented a drawing which showed the number of trees at the edge of the woodlot to the north of those properties that actually extended into the rear of these properties. So in order to afford those trees and in order to
allow a building envelope to be further removed from that tree line, the developer lengthened the depth of those lots. He did so by reducing the some of the depths of the lots. There's again, I'll try and get this pointer to work, but there are 2 rows of houses that are along the new proposed street and along Eagle Ridge Drive. The depth of those lots were reduced so that you can actually see the dotted line of the 420 alignment is actually where that was common with the depth of those lots. Those lots have been shrunk in order to provide the extra depth to those lots in the north in order to provide some environmental security for those properties. There was a lot of discussion at that public meeting about how to protect that woodlot. In discussions with the applicant and with the applicant's solicitor, it was agreed that that woodlot to the drip line would actually be zoned environmental protection area, so that area would be not eligible for construction. As well, there was to be in this implementing zoning bylaw, which is on tonight's council agenda, a 5-meter setback from that drip line for any building. That would include garden sheds, gazebos, the house or garage. So all of those structures would have to be 5 meters back from that drip line so as not to affect that. And then lastly, there was a condition put into the recommended to be put into the subdivision agreement that a chain link fence 1.2 meters high, 4 feet high, be erected along that boundary. This again was a concern so that residents of this subdivision weren't entering into the farmlands to the north where was reported a safety risk because of farm equipment and so on, as well as to keep the residents who back onto that woodlot from encroaching onto the woodlot with materials and using that for personal use. It will require that the chain link fence may have to stagger around those particular trees, but those were the changes that were done. Staff continues to recommend against this subdivision because of the 420 alignment which goes through this property. There is a letter was received today from the Ministry of Transportation. It should be in your packages. Again, they basically are opposed to any of those lots being created within that right-of-way, and they remind the council that there is a land use and development permit that is required for any works that would be within 14 meters of that right-of-way, which would include then the streets that abut that right-of-way. So they don't have an objection to the development to the north of the right-of-way. They have an objection to the development that's within the right-of-way. Our problem is that we can't provide access to the northlands without crossing that right-of-way. And so because that's a matter of provincial interest, we can't recommend it to council. However, if it were not for that, we would be able to confirm that this is a completion of the subdivision begun a number of years ago and does represent a good use of urban lands. So council at the last meeting seemed to indicate that they would like to see some conditions. We've brought those forward as well. So in the event that council decides that they would like to support this application, there are a series of recommendations and conditions that would have to be implemented in order for this subdivision to move forward. Those are the highlights of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Hurlovich. We've got Councillor Iannone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad to hear Mr. Hurlovich call it a good use of urban lands. I know that it was subject to the MTO not having done what council had asked them to do last year. My understanding would be, should council approve this application, I'm going to make a motion to do so, that council approve. Actually, I'll make that now, that council pass this Fernwood Phase 3 draft plan of subdivision including subject to the conditions included in our report. So first I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Councillor Thompson. Is there any other discussion? Did you want to continue?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And one could hope that that then motivates the MTO to either appeal it to the OMB or get off the pot and do what council asked them to do last year. Because it would seem to me they're the ones dragging their feet, not this council. I've read the conditions. I'm glad staff could get them back in time for tonight, and I wholly support the application.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wayne.
I'm totally in agreement with pushing the MTO on this. I'm just not sure. I was at first, and then I got to the end of the report package, and I'm not sure at this point whether my concerns about protecting the woodlot have been totally satisfied. I'm just wondering, actually, and I'll ask through you to staff why this wasn't done. Is there a suggestion that by reconfiguring the single-family lots to run east-west instead of north-south, it would avoid including the forest edge inside the residential lots, and that these are premium lots, and the increased value would compensate for any actual loss of square footage. There's a suggestion that a temporary construction fence is going to be constructed at the drip line, but then once all that care has been taken, there's going to be a permanent fence constructed right inside the forest itself, which of course will probably mean some trees will get cut as a result of that, and that forestry maintenance will be harder to accomplish when the fence is inside the treed area, and that the permanent fence should be erected at the forest edge so that it functions as a unit with a buffer there. And to me, that makes sense to have this natural buffer under public ownership and not in individual homeowners' hands. Because the other thing I'm wondering is, how are we going to monitor and police this? I mean, it's fine and dandy to zone a section of land inside one of the residential lots EPA, but who's going to make sure that the homeowners in question aren't dumping something there they're not supposed to, or cutting trees they're not supposed to, or otherwise disturbing it in a way they're not supposed to? So I'm just curious about that. And I know that page 4 of tonight's report says that typically a 7.5 meter rear amenity yard is provided for single detached dwellings. And that these dwellings, the back onto the woodlot, would have rear yard depths of 10 to 20 meters, including the EPA land. So why not some happy medium where you get this 5-meter buffer included in the public lands, and you don't have any environmental protection lands in the residential lots? I mean, certainly there seems to be the space to do that, and the potential of future homeowners there coming, violating the zoning would be reduced if they didn't have the EPA land on their property, if it was all publicly owned. So my question is, was this looked at, and why wasn't it done?
Okay, Mr. Hurlovich, maybe you can help us on the fencing and the EPA.
Yes, to the councillor, the suggestion, and I did meet with the person who suggested that we turn those lots sideways. So in essence, and I can't, on the map I can't read the numbers there. So in essence, her suggestion was to blend lots 21 and 22 into one lot, and 23 and 24 into one lot, and 25 and 26 into one lot, eliminating approximately, I guess, 3 lots from the plan of subdivision, and somehow turning that so that what would be the rear yard would be the side yard. I guess I couldn't figure that out for a couple of reasons. One is, a side yard in a residential zone is typically narrower than a rear yard. So we really saw there was more protection because the rear yard is 7.5 meters. The side yard is typically 1.5, perhaps 1.2 meters. So we didn't see that there was actually a better configuration by actually turning the lots sideways. So we actually thought the building could actually be coming closer to the trees than they would be. The suggestion that we keep that row of trees in public ownership, it's not exactly keep because we don't own them now. They're owned by the developer. So in essence, it would be to have the developer turn those over to the public. We're really talking about a row of trees. If I flip to the next slide. There we go. Again, so we're talking about a row of trees that are basically landlocked. The city would have no way of getting to that row of trees with a man with a chainsaw or with a truck or with anything else, because they would be at the back of the lots that are in question. So we don't have a way of actually accessing that. As I said, the chain link fence would travel at the back of that lot line, which is through the middle of those green circles. But yes, the fence is going to have to either stagger around those tree trunks or be adjusted so as to avoid the cutting of those trees. The purpose of the construction fence is that during the digging of a hole for the new foundation and so on, that the building contractor is not pushing dirt into the edge of the woodlot, changing the current grade of those properties. So it's a protective element rather than a restrictive element. So retaining a narrow or taking a narrow strip of land, which was landlocked, really didn't serve a very good municipal function. The parkland isn't needed, as you are aware. We own a large woodlot to the east in Fernwood Phase 1. We have a large walking trail along the water course that runs parallel to the railway tracks. So again, we felt there was a lot of open space in the area. The woodlot itself to the north is actually owned by the landowner to the north. So again, forest management is going to be his concern. It's not a city concern. And if anyone is encroaching into that woodlot area, it becomes a civil matter. That is, someone puts their garden shed in the middle of the woodlot and it belongs to somebody else, that fellow asks them to get the garden shed out of there, or their grass clippings, or whatever else they choose to put in there. It becomes a policing matter between the adjacent property owners. It's not a municipal matter. So we looked at all of those things and did not see that there was any public benefit being served beyond the one that would zone these trees and require that the landowners actually maintain the trees.
Okay, I guess last meeting I was thinking the same sort of thing myself about the lots being reconfigured. I mean, I don't think they need to be dropped by 3. I think it could be done so that maybe you lose one and just widen out the rest or something to come up with the same size. But I'm just really concerned about entrusting the care of the trees and abiding by the EPA provisions to several individual homeowners instead of the one landowner. I just think there's a lot less chance of something happening that isn't supposed to happen in that case. I don't know if anything can be done at this point. I mean, I guess the most that could be done is the owners could voluntarily agree to adjust the lot line to keep all the EPA area on one tract of land, but that would be a purely voluntary thing. I think I'm just not quite comfortable with this yet, though.
Okay, we got Councilor Naves and Councilor Morocco.
Yeah, Your Worship, I originally questioned even the use of putting a fence there. I questioned this last meeting, and really, to have a fence weaving in and out of trees, it's unsightly for starters, and to have another fence inside of that fence serves no purpose. Just a fence is not going to hold anything out. I think property owners of this type of property, I don't think they're going to, they're probably going to be responsible homeowners, and I think they'll abide by the rules. I'm not really concerned about that. And I really think that for having a developer, since he owns the land to the north, I don't see any reason that this fence even has to go in. It just seems of no value at all to the whole project. And I think it's a waste of money, it's a waste of space, and certainly when you put in a fence, you're going to uproot some other foliage that may be in there, maybe trilliums and everything else. So as far as I'm concerned, the fence isn't even required. I don't even know why we're talking about it.
Thank you, Councillor. And I know quite oftentimes these treed areas will attract people who like trees, and they're going to want the trees. They're not going to want to get rid of them. They're going to maybe plant more. Next, we've got Councillor Morocco.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have to say that I support the subdivision. I think it's great, but I'm going to have to support the staff's recommendation is not to approve Fernwood Phase 3, especially after seeing the letter that we just received January 13th from the MTO, indicating that it is a parcel of land that they're looking to secure for future highway development. So I'm not too sure that I want to get into a tippy with them, and I'm not too sure if we'll have any legal ramifications later on down the road if we do support this, knowing that we have this letter. So I can't support it.
Okay, thank you. We've got Councillor Gates.
Thank you. I'm with Joyce on this. I like to support the recommendation of staff. Until it's been withdrawn by the province, I don't think it's something that we should be doing at all. But I think it's because it's been raised at this point in time, I think it's a good time to actually talk about some of the concerns that I have, even with Phase 2 and Phase 3. And this is an example of urban sprawl. We need urban intensification. 40% of the population growth legally must be accommodated by urban intensification, smart growth principles. And I don't believe, even though I know it's been changed and hasn't been there as long as they've had this property, but it is not being followed on a go-forward basis. It's tough to create economic and social sustainability to communities like this for things like transit. The Phase 3 part is for 136 units. And some of the concerns here is that both schools in that area are overflowing, and they really can't take on any more students. And that's Cardinal Newman and St. Vincent de Paul. On one hand, and I know some people may smirk at this, but on one hand, we're dealing with coyotes because they don't have a place to go, and we're pushing development into the northwest corner of our city. Really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Maybe council should be working with developers to put the same type of numbers on lots in downtown in the downtown area, Main and Ferry area, to help us with our infilling problem. Also with the this urban sprawl stretches the services, which is key issues with the cost with us as a taxpayer. But this includes policing, fire, ambulance, water, sewer. I don't know if we have to do another water main out there. Road maintenance. These are just to name a few. And if we continue to push these developments, Niagara Falls, in my eyes, and again, we'd have to probably take a look at it, but we certainly have some time here. They're not going to be building here tomorrow, as we need another school, maybe another pumping station, and obviously staff would tell me that, maybe larger sewer mains, maybe even a new fire hall. And again, we know the cost of having more fighters to the city. So as it stands today, I really can't support anything that doesn't support urban intensification. Easier word for that is infilling. So I'm going to support the recommendation of staff.
Okay, fair enough. Councillor Ioannoni?
Just to that point, just want to clarify, it is in the urban boundary, and it is serviced, and we just built the new Kayla Road pumping station out there. I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Maybe we can get the motion refreshed. The clerk?
Yeah, it's basically that council approved Fernwood Phase 3 draft plan of subdivision and related zoning bylaw and the subject conditions that are outlined in the staff report.
Okay. All those in favor? 5. And opposed? 3. The motion carries. Okay. Thank you very much. All right, next up, we have mayor's reports and announcements. First off, I'd like to begin this evening by offering condolences. Sharon frets of our Human Resources Department on the recent passing of her mother. Rachel Thorne, a Niagara Falls Transit bus operator, as well, on the passing of her husband, Tim. I'm very sorry to hear the sad news, and we offer our sympathy to these families. Important events that have taken place in our city include a very exciting and successful Team Canada pep rally that happened here in the city, and I know most of the council was able to get out there. One of the more exciting and proud moments was when the team presented me with a signed jersey, team jersey, with Niagara Falls on the back as their team. This is their token of appreciation for us hosting the team. And I don't need to remind you, so these are some of the greatest players in the world. Most of them are first-round draft picks. You're going to be hearing about them, reading about them over the next several years. And they were kind enough to donate this as their appreciation for us hosting them. They were very thrilled. They couldn't say enough about our facility. These boys have played in facilities some of the best in the world, and they couldn't say enough. They hadn't been in a finer facility. They were impressed with the ice and the quality of the facility as well. So we're very, very proud. And I would just ask that staff take this and we could encase it in the Gale Center in a safe and secure place where all the residents could enjoy it. I'm sure it'll be something we're all very, very proud of and we'll look back on with fondness. Comment from Councillor Iannone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and it was a great day. The pep rally turned out fantastic. And I have to say, for somebody who doesn't follow hockey, these kids were phenomenal. They were great to all the kids who came out through the practice period, through the residents who wanted autographs and sticks, and these were the most accommodating young men. I mean, I actually watched hockey thinking, I just sat and talked to those kids the other day. It turned out fantastic. I wanted to ask that this council send a congratulatory letter to Team Canada for their silver medal win. I had said there is no shame in bringing home silver. And I'd just like to thank them for being such community-minded organization. Hockey Canada was fantastic. Working with Scott Salmon was very easy. And I'd just like to tell them thank you, and they're welcome to come back anytime.
Absolutely.
That's my motion. Okay,
motion seconded by Councillor Morocco that we send a letter of thanks. Any discussion? All those in favor? Could I also get a motion to ask staff to find a container display unit to yeah, we're just good? Okay, we'll just suggest. Okay, all right. Yes, Councilor.
And just to that point, I'd like to thank our Parks and Rec staff.
Yes.
I mean, we pulled this together quickly. Council passed that motion, and by that Friday, it was ready to go. Kathy Moldenhauer, Lori Albanese, Beth Engel, Mark Richardson, Steve Hamilton. They were a fantastic group to work with. I mean, we threw them work they weren't anticipating the week before Christmas, and I want to say they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, I'd echo that as well. I mean, they worked very, very hard, and as you said, the timing just before Christmas, and of course the Winter Festival of Lights, who also offered their support for the event. So it was a great event. It was wonderful. Too bad we couldn't have brought home the gold. I know we were all very disappointed watching. I was in disbelief after the second period. I thought it was in the bag, but not.
All the silver, man.
What's that?
Nothing wrong with silver.
No, there's nothing wrong with silver.
We beat the Americans.
So that's great. Great news. As well, New Year's Eve is something that I wanted to draw attention to. Our staff also had a very heavy hand in helping direct the festivities of New Year's Eve. And for those of you that had a chance to watch it, you had to be impressed. We went down there early in the evening. We went with the family, and then we watched the rest of it on TV. And it was as professional as any show on TV. It could compete with anything, including New York. It was so professional, so well done. The energy was so high, and I understand that we broke a record. We reached over 2 million viewers, and which is leading to some great discussions for next year. I think people have realized this is Canada's New Year's Eve show. It was so well done and so well followed, and it's such a boon to the operators in Niagara Falls. I understand everybody was full. The restaurants, hotels, motels, everybody enjoyed the success of this event. And we're looking to expand on it for next year. I didn't know if Serge, if you had any further comments that you wanted to maybe add in regard to the show. You were involved in the show. You're one of the producers, and Serge, I know they were here till middle of the night finishing off the show. Then he left for his holidays without going to bed. He went straight on his trip. So came back with a cold. But Serge, maybe did you just want to share a little bit with us on New Year's?
Well, I think a lot of credit goes again to the hospitality industry because they were key. The different BIAs that provided funding and supported it. Global came on as a major partner this year to complement the private sector. They sent us an email that they're definitely back for 2011. They were also thrilled with the ratings. We're going to get together with the private sector, the partners, the funding partners, to see, I think, initial responses that everybody wants to see it happen again next year. So we're going to have those discussions in the next couple of months.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any questions or comments on New Year's Eve? Okay. Also, Literacy Day is quickly approaching. A number of us are going to be reading at different schools throughout the community, and it's a great way to focus the importance of reading, especially amongst the youth. I'll be doing that as well. I've got a couple of schools that I'll be reading books, and I'll bring along some of my favorites. And our annual Sports Wall of Fame will be taking place Sunday, January the 30th at 2 p.m. at the Gale Center. The public is invited. We encourage all the counselors to be there as well, as local sports heroes from 3 eras will be honored. So that concludes my remarks. Next on to communications. Winter Festival of Lights. Councillor Carrio moves a request for fireworks, seconded by Councillor Pietrangelo. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Then we'd like to ask the clerk if there are any additional items for council.
Not communications per se, Your Worship, but there are a couple of additional resolutions, and if we can deal with those during the resolution section related to liquor licenses. One related to the NCCC a stadium endorsement, and the other one related to an event that's going on downtown. But I can talk to those further when we get to the resolution section.
Okay, thank you. Next up is under reports, under finance matters. First is F 2011-04, potential senior property tax discount. Councillor Carrio. Recommended by Councillor Carrio, seconded by Councillor Pietrangelo. Any? Oh, okay. Okay. Are you seconding it too? Or are you? Yes. Okay. And then comments. Councillor Pietrangelo, and then Councillor Wing, and then Councillor Maves too, or?
I was in the same.
Okay.
Thanks, Your Worship. I guess through yourself to the writer of the report, which would be Mr. Harrison. I'm just wondering, and I don't know if this is a firm proposal, but would people who rent a home be able to get a rebate for water?
Through the mayor to Councillor Pietrangelo, yes. For the water rebate, a tenant can, as long as they have the water account in their name. So if a tenant had the water account in their name and they qualified and were part, and they had the guaranteed income supplement, then certainly they would be a successful applicant.
Okay, but that's not what's proposed for the tax code.
No, because they don't pay. Yes, you'd have to be a homeowner that that has the guaranteed income supplement.
Okay, and so obviously if there was 662 for the water, probably wouldn't be that many for the tax.
Well, I mean, historically, when we had both programs prior to 2009, it was marginally different. 10% less maybe, but for the most part, the applicants received both the water rebate and the seniors property rebate as well.
Okay, and the only other question was, the average tax bill, it says in the report, went up by $36, but the rebate is proposed at $100?
Certainly, that's what for the purposes of this report and to transfer it to the budget discussions, that's what we were suggesting. There's a difficulty if you don't set the amount at a certain dollar figure, for instance, $50, $75, $100, there becomes a very challenging element to, if it's tied to the assessment increase, that's a challenge. So, but again, we're open to looking at that, but there's a challenge from our staffing of looking at every single application to calculate what the actual tax increase is if we were to tie it to that. So that's why we had indicated that it would be better to have a set amount. And again, it would be open to the budget deliberations whether that set amount's $100, $75, $50.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Wing.
Yes, that was my concern, was the last thing that Mr. Harrison was discussing, that trying to tie it to assessment would be a challenge, and yet if we had a fixed dollar amount, it would create inequities, because the senior who owns a $150,000 home would get the same amount as the senior who owns a $300,000 home. even though the one with the $300,000 home is actually paying more. So there's that. I'm just concerned about fairness, and we had enough discussion about fairness downstairs. The other thing is, I'm wondering if this is such a pressing need right now. Like, certainly I support going forward to 2011 budget deliberations with this, but in light of the new information that the Ontario Senior Homeowners Property Tax Grant is currently being doubled from $250 to $500, I'm wondering if this is such a pressing need as when this idea first surfaced. So, certainly I can support going forward with it, but, in light of some of the information in this report, we may want to take this with a pretty hefty dose of salt.
Appreciate that. And also, further to Councillor Pietroangelo's comments, I was of the same mindset that I thought, $100, if the average increase was $36.92, my thinking was maybe that we should be looking at more like a $50 number, which would obviously cut this number in half. And then all of a sudden, now we're looking at, on average, a cup of coffee per household per year to keep the seniors, or help seniors keep themselves in the homes. So, yeah, definitely I would, even suggest moving it forward at a $50 amount maybe, would be more in line, a little more realistic to what they're asking for. But, Councillor Pietrangelo.
Yeah, based on the response from Mr. Harrison, I think what you said basically is that council can deliberate what the actual amount would be at the 2010 budget discussions, correct?
Certainly, staff is just putting forward the fact that this would be the program. The program was at $100. The water rebate is at $100. This is the estimated cost, and we could put it in at $100 for the budget deliberations. And then, obviously, like anything that's in the budget, it's up to council to decide what the expenditure levels would be, and that would be the appropriate time to discuss it.
Okay.
And also a comment to Councillor Wing's comments, and she's right about inequity, and it's similar to the water credit. I mean, it's really arbitrary because, as you mentioned before, Mr. Harrison has said it's too labor-intensive to go and do it based on anything other than the guaranteed income supplement, make it a standard amount. I understand the challenge of that.
Certainly the water rebate is similar in the sense that it's dependent on how much water each individual applicant would use. So there is something inherently difficult in producing fantastic equality in this type of a program. However, the intention, as I understand it, is to provide a remedy to those that most need it, and that's what the intention of the rebate is, both the water rebate and any potential homeowner.
Okay, thank you. So, yes, Councillor Gates.
Yeah, just real quick. I really think as a council, we got to be very careful on what you're doing. And I did have some dialogue with Jim earlier this morning, because it comes to the thing, why just for seniors? Any fair tax system must include seniors, single moms, single dads, those less fortunate. I think going down this path could become extremely dangerous if we're singling out one group. Also understanding that seniors may need some help in our community on paying their tax bill. I'd also like to see in part of the report to take a look at maybe a possible reduction in the charge that citizens are when they get behind their property tax, because obviously some people get behind their property tax for reasons they could be good for 10, 15 years. They lose their job, all of a sudden they got other issues. So I'd like to maybe take a look at what we can charge in interest rates to help some of those as well. So I think we have to be very careful in what we're doing here. I think we have to support seniors, but I'm sure if you take a look at the rest of the community, a single mom may say the same thing, a single dad may say the same thing, somebody just lost their job may say the same thing. And I did have this discussion with you today earlier, Jim, so it's just something we got to be careful on, that's all. I have some concerns.
Yep, and fair enough, and we did discuss this earlier today, and I guess my biggest challenge with, in regard to specifying seniors is the fact that they're not as employable as, or they don't have the same opportunity in the future maybe as someone a little bit younger, but it's a good point. Councillor Wing.
Yeah, that got me thinking. Yes, I understand seniors' pensions do not go up at the same rate as the cost of living. However, that being said, at least they've got a guaranteed income. What we're talking about doing here is instead of taking this amount of money from seniors, we're looking at taking it from the rest of the community which includes struggling business owners who are trying to keep the doors open, and working families who may suddenly find their prime breadwinner out of a job. So, you know, I know we want to help seniors, but is this really a fair approach after all?
Councillor Thompson.
Well, I think the criteria here is the guaranteed income supplement. That's for seniors who qualify, who are 65 and over, and who do not have sufficient income to look after their livelihood. And as a result, that's the benchmark so that you can say those are really the people who are most in need in the community. They don't have the opportunity to go out and get a job, usually at 65. I think Councillor Maves and I are the exception. But those are an identified group that certainly are definitely earmarked as somebody who is at the low end of the scale with respect to this. So if you want to help anybody, that's probably a good start, because they've all been pre-qualified through the government. So,
thank you. Councillor Wing.
Yeah, I guess the only problem with that is, according to the staff report, the Ontario Senior Homeowners Property Grant is an annual amount provided to help offset property taxes for seniors with low to middle incomes who own their own homes. So GIS doesn't give you the bottom end of the scale. It gives you the bottom to middle end. So, you know, it's like it's maybe not quite the measure we want.
Just to clarify that, the provincial grant income tax program is on a graduated basis. So when they say it goes from $250 up to $500, it's based on your income. So it would be based, and it would go up to a certain threshold. I don't know enough about the program. Certainly for the budget deliberations, I'll be able to provide that. But guaranteed income supplement, as Councillor Thompson has indicated, is for those that at the lower end of the income. So the program with the program that the province has is a little per se richer, because it does graduate up, and people may be able to qualify. And for those at the lower end, they may be able to get up to $500. So it's certainly.
Would you like me to change the motion to debate it now, or was the motion not true?
Okay. All right, we've got a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor? Okay. Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, we've got some legal matters. First up, L 2011-01, Niagara Falls Humane Society postponement of charge. Yes, Councillor Wing.
I'll move a recommendation that the city agree to postpone its charge in interest of the Niagara Falls Humane Society bankers. And just to sort of give a bit of background, this request is arising from the debt consolidation being carried out right now as part of getting the Humane Society's financial house in shape. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to report on a couple other initiatives. There was a recent headline, January 13th review, no-kill policy dropped. Not true, very misleading and inaccurate. The board is in the process of refining what no-kill means. And, you know, if you go online and look at no-kill, it seems every shelter has a slightly different variant of what it means. But the Humane Society is not dropping it, as the headline would lead us to believe. It will not put down healthy adoptable animals. So the reason it's refining the policy is there's a real financial strain on the shelter. Funding's always been an issue there, and you know, it arises because many people think animals are disposable, especially cats. They treat cats that way, and I think further implementation of the recommendations of our Bandow report will help in that regard. But we're hoping in the future to shift back to the original vision when the no-kill was adopted. But in the meantime, until more funds are coming in, the Humane Society just can't afford to save the animals which have serious health issues. The second thing I wanted to report on is the Humane Society's in the process of installing a spay-neuter room at the shelter. They're hoping that some local vets will step forward to help run it, and I think there's been an encouraging, supportive response from at least one so far. The spay-neuter room will allow the Humane Society to reduce its staff time and travel costs, as well as the stress on the animals, and they're anticipating an annual savings of approximately $70,000. And finally, I just want to stress that the importance of getting the message out to cat owners that it is vitally important that they spay and neuter their pets. That's the only way we're going to reduce the number of feral animals in the city, the number of unwanted animals, and until the community takes this responsibility and stops creating the problem, we're going to have the problem amongst us. It's the irresponsible pet owners who create the demands on the Humane Society to either shelter animals or to euthanize and incinerate them. And it's also the irresponsible pet owners who create the problems that we occasionally hear about from people who have colonies in their neighborhoods. So, I can't unstate that enough, the necessity of spaying and neutering pets. And as I said, I will move that we postpone our charge in interest of the bankers.
Okay, do we have a second?
What's the motion? Is it
Against
the
that,
staff,
the city,
before the staff? I'm a bit confused.
The city agreed to postpone its charge to the interest of the Niagara Falls Humane Society's bankers. So it's opposing the opposite of the recommendation from staff, right? No, so we have a second by Councilor Morocco. Is there any other discussion?
Can I just ask?
Yes.
Could we have Mr. Beeman actually, explain to council what the difference would be in either postponing the charge or not postponing the charge?
Mr. Beeman?
That's a very good question. As a practical matter, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure it's going to make a whole lot of difference. As a lawyer, you can never recommend, ever, that your client decline the first position in a situation in which they have security on a property. You just can't do it. But I'm not losing any sleep. If council goes ahead and agrees to postpone, I'd say the same thing with the Boys and Girls Club, because there are other interests that council has to look at, and among them the good works that these programs work. And quite frankly, was the purpose of my email. I mean, these organizations can't survive without the goodwill of their bankers. Bankers are notoriously inflexible in these situations, and our security to begin with was more a kind of symbolic thing than a real true banker's mortgage. It was a declining matter, and really the only time we collect on it is if they stop doing what they're doing. So unless council has real concerns about either Humane Society stop being the Humane Society or the Boys and Girls Club basically stop operating their good works, then there really wouldn't be a reason for me to really, insist, oh no, you got to keep that position. But just in the position of a lawyer, you just as a matter of general practice, you can't advise your client to take, that's a business decision that the client has to make. But I can assure you, I have no qualms at all. If you direct me to go ahead and surrender these positions, I'm certainly not the least bit surprised. And I think the councilor's question is very astute in that, as a practical matter, I really don't think it's going to make a lot of difference in either case to council's position.
So just to follow that up then, why did you write 2 reports telling us to decline to postpone?
As I explained, Mr. Chair, that the decision to postpone security is a business decision. The lawyer does not make that decision. So I was asked to make a recommendation. I make the only recommendation I can make as your lawyer. Don't do it. When I'm asked about the practical consideration of the business considerations of it, there's nothing I can tell you that says, oh, it's really, given the realities of this situation, I can't come back with any business rationale to argue with the client who's sitting in your position and says, well, we want to do it anyway.
So when he's got his lawyer hat on, he's saying that.
Originally, right. I would have been happy to send these reports just saying for instruction from council, but our policy going forward is to make an actual recommendation. So the only recommendation I can make as a lawyer is don't do it.
Okay. Councilor Pietrangelo?
Same as the planner with the 2 acres being part.
Okay. Councilor Carrio.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm a bit concerned that we'd set a precedent in postponing and going into a second position. Have we done this in the past that you can recall, Mr. Beeman, where we've postponed and gone into another position, let someone go ahead of us?
I'm not absolutely sure, Councillor Carey, but I believe we did do that with the previous one for the Humane Society. Now it's a long way back, and I just read these. These are way back in the 80s, Mr. Chair, and so I just read these reports quickly when I was going through this, but I think there actually was somewhere in there a situation where we did go behind. But if we really and truly, like in the situation, for example, when we're dealing with site plan agreements and that sort of thing, I would really, really strongly recommend do not do that. Don't go behind the bank in those situations, because we'll never get our site plan agreement complied with. Here, the nature of the security right from the outset was something that was, as I said, it's more a symbolic security than a real mortgage position that council's taken anyway with respect to these particular transactions. So it would be even without the postponement, a recovery, if, for example, the Boys and Girls Club decided to stop being the Boys and Girls Club, would be quite difficult. If we can, once the feds get their money in there, they're going to be ahead of us whether we like it or not. If they're trying to get their money out, we're going to be behind them, and the building on sale is not going to be worth $12 million because it has such a limited use. So that, I don't know that the position we're giving up, Mr. Chair, I don't know is that strong a position to begin with, and that's why I'm saying I'm not surprised at to be instructed to agree to postpone. But I would, speaking specifically of the precedent issue, I would not regard this as a precedent for any regular business-style transaction, nor any planning transaction that council's involved in. These are very unique circumstances dealing with charitable organizations, and I think that I would have no trouble making that
My question, the reason I asked about the precedent would be,
yes,
it would be in regards to any other group that would want us to postpone in favor of their institutions, not in anybody that comes to us. If we've done it before, I don't have an issue. If you could answer that question, it's really the only question. And if to get my vote, I'd like to have a table to find out if we've done it before. If we've done it before and we're not setting a precedent, I would be prepared to do it in this case and in the Boys Club's case. But if it's setting a precedent, I'm not sure that I want to do it.
Well, if council wishes, I can conduct that research and see if it has been done before. I don't want to say firmly in the other case, I'm sure, but I do believe that that's what I read. However, I wasn't reading those reports with that particular question in mind, so I would be cautious in providing that assurance for council.
Would it hurt them to defer it till the next meeting?
I know the Boys and Girls Club in particular is anxious to know right away. And I've had 2 calls from the lawyer for the Humane Society since he first, Mr. Boone, since he first contacted me. I think it was in late December 15th or so. So they are anxious, but it's 2 weeks. I certainly would be back in 2 weeks. I wouldn't make them wait any longer than that.
Okay. We got Councillor Morocco? No, Councillor Maves?
That was my question about the deferment.
Okay, Councillor Iononi.
I can just surmise that short of a small miracle or them winning Lotto Max, they're coming back in the same financial situations. Both of them brought this report to us. So, I mean, they need to know. Both groups need to know they are not getting an influx of money anytime soon between now and then. So nothing's going to change.
Okay. Well, and the other thing I find of interest here, too, is that we call it a forgivable loan. You know, I mean, that's a grant by another name, and it's symbolic only in security. I mean, that expires in 2015. Well, what's the will of council? Do we have a motion? Someone want to make a motion? We have a motion on the floor. Maybe we can ask.
Yeah, okay. I'll amend my motion to include both.
Both.
Girls and Humane Society.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Morocco. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Next, we've got ratification. Yeah, sorry.
I'm not sure what you voted on there. Did you vote your original motion to agree to postpone this charge for both?
Yes, for both,
Okay.
yes.
Everybody's clear what we voted on? All right, we've got ratification of committee of the whole. Councillor Iannoni. Oh, wait a minute. What did I miss? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, sorry. Item 3, L 2010-17 Niagara Convention Civic Center lease. Okay, moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Iannoni. Discussion or comments? Councillor Morocco.
Didn't hear what he said, sorry.
He moved the recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
So we've got Councillor Morocco.
Your Worship, I have a few questions to point out. First of all, I want to just say, first and foremost, there's no one that probably supports a convention center in our city. Well, probably I'm up there on the list because I think this is great for our destination. It's great to increase the tourism impact here to Niagara and hopefully build on jobs as well. And I do want to just say thank you very much for the councillors that did support the deferral so we could actually take a look at it. When I say myself and Councillor Gates last December 13th when it was in our report. I have to say working on lease agreements for the last couple of years seems to become a little bit of an expert in leasing. And I was surprised to see that this lease for the Niagara Convention Civic Center was actually in the consent agenda of our package. I just have a couple of questions, though, just to clarify. Who actually is NCCC? And another question is, who is the board? If I can just kind of get that
Okay.
through the staff, through you to the staff? Or?
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Beeman? Or Serge? Maybe Serge, did you? Okay, Mr. Beeman, I'll ask you to answer that.
The NCCC Inc., as was described in the very first report that Council got back in October of 2007, is a corporation which was incorporated by the Niagara, the Falls U BIA. It is going to be the operator of the facility. The facility is designed as a municipal capital facility, and we're right kind of on the cutting edge of the municipal capital facility model. This is a recent amendment to the Municipal Act, which I'm just trying to recall. I think it was in about '98 when they first enacted them. There aren't very many of them, and this one is particularly innovative in that the BIA has incorporated this company that's going to run the place. The members of the board...
Sorry, Mr. Beeman, but you're saying that this is a new plan.
It's a municipal capital facility is a program that, a method of operating municipal facilities that was lobbied for and eventually approved by the provincial government. And I think it was around '98 when they first passed it. It was incorporated and included in the Municipal Act 2001. And now municipalities are trying to use these new powers and ways to get things to provide facilities in new ways that they hope will enable them to just provide them at all. Situations such as this one, where the idea of having a convention center has been kicked around for so long, and no one seemed to be able to come forward with a workable model. The initiative was taken by the Falls U BIA, coupled with Mr. Falicetti, to create this current model, bring it forward, demonstrate to council satisfaction that it was a workable model, and we've proceeded in that way since that time. This agreement is the culmination, is one piece of the entire project, which is now coming to fruition.
Okay. Another question is, who is our representative? You said we have a representative there from council on
There is one member of the 13-member board is a representative of council, and it is the current city representative is Councillor Thompson.
So the board consists of 13 members?
Yes.
And who would those members represent?
It's actually said, I'm just going to take me a minute. There's 6 from the Falls U BIA. There is 1 from the Parks Commission. There is 1 from the city. There's 1 from the region. Sorry, Mr. Thompson? Yeah, there's 1 from Niagara Falls Tourism, 1 from the Victoria Center BIA. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got that one, NPC. Oh yes, and one from the casino, and right now there is 1 seat which is vacant because it was meant to go to the Bridge Commission. The Bridge Commission has declined to take it up, and that the party that they're looking at trying to get another party to take that seat who will actually contribute some money to the operation of the casino. The convention center.
Thank you. Mr. Beeman, when you actually were kind enough to meet with me actually last week after I had asked to have this deferred,
Yes.
just to follow up on some questions that I was concerned that kind of raised some flags in here. First of all, this is a private company. It pays no taxes, and it pays no rent.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So I think what I'm just looking at here is looking at a way that we can make sure we can actually have a reserve fund to actually offset any capital costs or any expenses that would come, maybe just an example, in the next 10 years. This convention center, say, needs a new roof, and it's millions of dollars. So my question was, I think there should have been some type of a reserve fund or a contingency fund, and Mr. Beeman, you did agree to that.
Well, what I said was the agreement provides for a contingency fund.
Yes.
But I did not agree that the company was a private company. The company is actually owned by the BIA, which is a public entity. Further,
But I'm just going to stop it. But you said they don't have to show us their books.
Oh, no, I did not say that. I said they did have to show us their books.
Okay.
And I also said that this company ultimately is subject to our control because ultimately the BIA answers to the council. The BIA is an entity created by a bylaw of the council. So that, and the company, and this has been a matter we have gone over with the NCCC ever since it began. Ultimately, they all have the same auditor, and so in order to absolutely clarify that there was no doubt about this, I've put it in the agreement that we have access to their books.
Is that in the agreement you had given to us on December 13th, or the one that you just recently changed?
It's the one that I changed. Originally, I felt that the matter was quite clear as a matter of municipal law that we had access to those books and records because the corporation is controlled by the BIA. However, when I had an additional time to work on the agreement, I was aware that Mr. Felicetti would be having to explain the agreement to the federal authorities who have, in our agreement with them, have a right to review the agreement. So I took advantage of that gap to modify the agreement to articulate these requirements in order that it would be easier to explain the agreement to the federal authorities. People kind of tired of getting lectures in municipal law and how the various things work and how municipalities, delegated authorities work and so on. So rather than spend time having Mr. Felicetti having to haul me to meetings to explain to the federal guys how it all works, I thought it would simplify things if we put it in the agreement, and therefore I have. I spoke with Mr. Lustig about it. Mr. Lustig was agreeable to that because he acknowledged his client had to do that anyway, and so we put it all in the agreement.
Okay, Mr. Beeman, I appreciate that, but I just have to ask if things have changed in the last 4 years, because I understand that if a councillor and council approves to defer a document to the next meeting so that those councillors have an opportunity to review it, I'm somewhat surprised when I met with you and Mr. Todd, Ken Todd, on Friday with also Councillor Wayne Gates, that there was some amendments made to this lease, actually 5 points to be exact, that were changed. So I'm surprised that, again, here it was in the consent agenda, which is usually one of those throw up your hand and it just gets, right passed through, blown away there, and that's all done. A lease that we had an opportunity to really take a look at and make sure that we, as representatives of the taxpayers, were making sure we were going to protect their interests down the road by making sure this is some type of a reserve fund to protect the interest of future debt. But can you tell me why you went ahead and made those changes and went ahead and met with the NCCC and the BIA or whoever it was and made changes without waiting until we had an opportunity? Because now here it is. It's changed again. And I have to say there's 2 points, 11.4 and 15.1, that I have no idea where they are in this lease.
Well, they're in the sections that are numbered.
Well, does staff now just go ahead and make changes without it coming back to staff? Or
If I could just jump in, we're going to get explanation from the clerk.
We appreciate that at the last meeting you were thrust with the agreement, quite a lengthy agreement at the last minute. And I mean, you know, I advised staff that in all likelihood there would be a good chance that the agreement would be deferred for that reason, just because you were getting it an hour before the meeting and didn't have time to digest it. Now, as far as the changes were emailed to you on Friday, and I think they were set out fairly simply so we could not avoid any confusion. You had the original version of the agreement, the December 13th, in your package, but your email on Friday set out what the changes were in a covering page, and those sections, which really account for 4 pages in the total agreement, were also emailed to you. So we tried to make it as simple as possible to highlight what was different from the December 13th version that you had in your package already.
And I appreciate that, Dean, but
okay.
I'm just saying that, and I don't disagree, and I greatly appreciate the changes that were made, but you know, I didn't know that he was going to go. And actually, when we met on Friday, my suggestion was that there should actually be maybe a possibility of having a percentage added as a contingency or a reserve fund to be set aside, because it does state that the convention center and the Fallsview BIA and representatives are actually more than willing to make sure that they're going to cover all expenses, and that includes capital expense, but it doesn't say what percentage. And I would have liked to recommend the fact that we actually ask them to put a percentage, a small percentage, every year aside. And I think it protects both the taxpayers, ourselves, and also the hoteliers, and as well the convention centers, so that they don't get hit 10 years down the road. Because they can say that they didn't make any money or there wasn't a profit, and all the money or the profit that they did get, I understand, goes back into the repairs with inside any decor, AV, or whatever it is that they need, staffing. And that's understandable. That's great. But this is an organization that has no track record. And I'm just thinking that it's best for us. Let's get this off the ground the first time, and let's do it right. This is a city-owned building, and I think that's an obligation to us as elected officials to make sure we try and protect any future investment or cost to the taxpayers when we can do it simply right up front. So I think that we've seen these things happen before with the arenas, and then, you know, 30, 40 years down the road, we're taking huge million-dollar loans to pay for it. I'm just, you know, Ken, you actually went back and you already negotiated. And I asked you, I said, well, wasn't it possible to possibly put in a percentage and ask them to guarantee at least a small percentage every year to be put aside for a reserve fund? And your response was, well, you've already went back and negotiated, and chances are, if I go back again, they'll sue us.
Well,
Well, you should have waited maybe to talk to us and see if there was something else that we found. What do you think? I'm just going to look at it and not have some input?
Get a response from the solicitor.
I have secured a clause which provides that a capital reserve fund calculated to ensure the tenant has funds in hand to discharge the requirements of the section which requires it to obligates it to maintain and repair this building in the lease. I prefer that. I would recommend that to council over an arbitrary percentage, because I have no idea whether any percentage I recommended would or would not be adequate. I also would not know what to base the percentage calculation on. I was fortunate that I was able to secure some modifications to the lease after it was originally signed. It has been, the new version has been signed. I was very firmly advised that the Fallsview BIA, both BIAs, both Victoria Center and Fallsview, that are contributing money to this organization, have gone as far as they're willing to go as far as the terms of this agreement are concerned. I believe that the wording that's in the agreement as it stands now will adequately protect the council from capital matters. The whole idea behind this arrangement was that this is an effort to be cooperative towards a common goal. The parties that represent and the majority of the members of the BIA, of the actual NCCC board, all have a vested interest in maintaining the building and have no interest in letting it run down. I suggest that in those circumstances it is a reasonable risk for the council to take to enter into this agreement. The city staff will be constantly monitoring the building to ensure that it is properly maintained. We have teeth within this agreement to have it maintained in the manner we wish, and we will be providing our calculation as to what we think an adequate amount to be set aside is.
Well, Mr. Beeman, I hope that you're right, because I would like to make sure that we do have some teeth in this agreement, because it's like any lease. There's always some little clause in here that we can, get out of. But I would have liked to have seen at least somewhat of a percentage guaranteed to be put aside from the convention center into a city fund that could have been easily accessed if they needed any capital expenses or any dollars to go towards any capital expenses. That's pretty much, I'm just trying to protect the taxpayers down the road. And you said that there was no dollars or really an idea of what calculation to use. If I may, Your Worship, refer to Serge Filicetti, because in the report it states here from Serge is he's got here, the convention center will provide one such destination, and once fully established, is projected to generate approximately $93 million in new expenditures annually. So I guess my question is that a benchmark that we're looking to set out for the convention center? Because if that's it, I'm sure you could probably look at setting a percentage from that.
What I'd like to do, I'd like to ask the CAO. The CAO is going to comment, and then maybe we're going to get Mr. Felicetti to jump in and help answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to go back to, excuse me, the other point before we leave it. And Councillor Morocco and Gates and I met with Mr. Beeman on Friday. And in that conversation, if I can preface that there were some comments that were given to Mr. Beeman in advance of that meeting, and Mr. Beeman took those comments and went back to the solicitor for the NCCC to see if we could incorporate some of those changes or suggestions into the agreement to help satisfy some of the concerns of the councillors. Those were incorporated. A number of those changes were incorporated. They didn't quite go as far as the councillor would have liked. And in our meeting on Friday, those changes were already incorporated into that agreement, and we explained that if there was additional changes that you would like to see, the best place to do that would be to bring those concerns forward tonight, raise them before council, and if you want to have us go back and have a motion that would pass this council to say we definitely want a fixed percentage, council will have to recall what was added was that we're asking that a reserve be set up. But we haven't gone as far as to say how much that reserve should be. If council desires that, we certainly would go back through their solicitor to see if they would look at further amendments. If this council is not supportive of that and is supportive of the existing language that we put forward, that would be the end of that issue. So that was the direction we gave on Friday's meeting, and I think the appropriate thing to do, Councillor, to get that on the table is that at appropriate time you could make a motion to that effect and see if there's support of the majority of council to move that forward. If not, we're left with the existing language that's in the draft agreement before you tonight.
Well, Mr. Todd, then I would like to make that a motion, because I think it's going to protect all that are going to benefit from this, the taxpayers as well as the NCCC and the BIA, because every year there will be a guaranteed percentage put aside for capital reserve. And I'm only saying, and you know what, and I hope that this never happens, that it's not successful, because I have great anticipation that this is going to be very successful. But let's just not do something that we have the opportunity to do right at the beginning, and that's just protect ourselves and the taxpayers later on down the road. You know what, if things just get run down, and I know that also states that we do have the access to go into that building at any time to investigate it, but I think it's just trying to make sure that we're ahead of things this time instead of behind the eight ball all the time. So it's just, I'd like to recommend that we actually ask and see if they're willing to put a percentage aside into a city fund that is a reserve fund. And I'm not saying that that's going to be the only amount, because they might have to pay more and over and above what's in the reserve fund for whatever repair might come up in 10 or 20 years, because it is a 25-year lease.
Okay. Just before we, if you do want to put that motion on the floor, we do have a motion currently on the floor, and I've got Councillors Thompson and Iannone waiting to speak.
Well, I'm really surprised to hear some of the comments and some of the suggestions that are being made. This has always been a resolution of this council that all of the work done to get a convention center here, it was always said that the municipality will not use any taxpayers' money. The reason this agreement came into existence is because the Fallsview BIA agreed to put forth $1 million a year for the next 15 years, not for capital, but for operating or any expenses that are involved. That is in the agreement. The Victoria Centre put in $100,000 a year for 15 years. I think it might be a little bit more than that. And this has always been a very amicable situation. The people on the board are some of the pillars of the community in business that pay huge taxes. In fact, Councillor Cario is one of them that sit as one of the Fallsview representatives at the present time. And the solicitor, Mr. Lustig, came to the meeting last Thursday and suggested some amendments where there would be an opportunity for audits and inspection of the books and anything that would give the municipality opportunity to have more control and more input in the situation. And it was without debate. The board moved a motion, and anything that had been suggested would have been approved, because this has been a very smooth and cooperative effort back and forth, and I see no reason for anything else but that. They know that they have the responsibility to maintain the facility. There are contingencies in the plan to make sure that that takes place, and in fact the $1 million annually is to make sure that that happens. The other situation is that after the third year, they feel that unlike most convention centers, they should be in a break-even or even in a profit situation after that. So there'll be plenty of opportunity with the $16 million over that period of time to look after any contingencies. And anytime there has been any concern with respect to all of these discussions and efforts, the tourist industry generally, the Parks Commission, the casino have all been extremely supportive of making this very positive venture move forward, and I see no problem with that at this time. In fact, all of the agreements were signed within a couple of minutes of the motion to make sure that whatever the council wanted, it was available. But do I think that there's any suggestion that they're not going to look after their responsibility? The facility is owned by the municipality, and they have a 25-year lease which they are responsible for. So at no time was there any suggestion they would come back to the municipality. In fact, all the motions over the past 20 years with respect to this have said no taxpayers' money. And that's the way it's been.
Okay, thank you. We've got Councillor Ioannoni, then Gates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Friday, we received the amendments, and 7.2, 1 and 2 both covered what I thought was Councillor Morocco's talking about, and that's in regards to what their responsibilities were. It's quite, I'm not going to read it out loud to everybody, but it's quite in depth. It covered everything from the grass to the roof. So I didn't have a problem with that, and that the tenant shall maintain a capital reserve fund calculated to ensure the tenant has funds in hands to discharge those responsibilities. I was comfortable with that because as we've listened to tourism come here and speak to us time and time again, not just tourism, but the people who provide everything that's going to go into that community center, from pop to napkins to, what do you call them, distributors, everybody that's doing supplies there, they're all counting on it continuing. So it doesn't make any financial benefit for NCCC not to do those things. So I didn't, and what I always look for is books and records. Can we look at their money? Can we look at penny to penny? Can you look line to line? And 11.412, 2, and 3 covers that. And also rules of board meetings. I didn't know who the board members were before Councilor Morocco asked, so I was glad that she did. I now know. But to me, those are the first things I look for. Can we get in there and ask the difficult questions? And I think that the points in here allow us to do that. That's why I seconded the motion.
Okay. We've got Councilor Gates and then Morocco.
Thanks very much. I want to make it very, very clear that I certainly support the convention center, the jobs, the opportunity to have a tourist destination that goes year-round. So I think those type of things go without saying, I think, right around this table. To Councillor Thompson's point on the $15 million and the guarantee of $1 million in operating expenses. So that is outside the $70 million that was given from the provincial and the federal government. The problem that I have with that particular statement, and brother, I guess, Vince Carey also told me that, it's not in the lease. I believe I haven't read that. I've tried to go through the lease, the language part of the lease, and I don't see that. The other thing that has to be a concern for the taxpayers of Niagara Falls is that there isn't a convention center that makes money outside Toronto, is my understanding, and somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, and they make money because they charge $30 to park your vehicle. So it's a very expensive to use that particular convention center. So there has to be concerns around the table on a go-forward basis. The fact that it's there, the snowball, as I like to say, is already at the bottom of the hill. What we have to do is make sure whatever we do here, we do it right. And I want to make sure that everybody understands we own it. The taxpayers own that facility. I think I'm correct on that. And I guess what I have a concern with the makeup of the board. The makeup of the board should have, I believe, because we own it, 6 reps from Niagara Falls. We should have the majority of the people sitting on that board because we do own it. I think that's very important. The makeup of the board obviously is something that we should take a look at. In the what we're provided today around this to talk about this tonight. The main issue here that I see why it's here was the liquor license is important to get it going, and we all understand that you can't have a convention center without having some form of something to drink. So I understood that, but I don't think that's a issue that's that important that we don't get this thing right. To protect not only the BIA, not only the tourist sector, not only the city, but at the end of the day, protect the taxpayer. And I think that's where I think I'm going to talk about some of the things, and I'd appreciate it if the lawyer follows along, because it is in the lease, and I tried to break it down into sections for him. I'd like to know this type of lease. Obviously, we're not the first municipality that's ever had a convention center. Would this be like a normal type of a setup where we own it, yet we kind of let somebody else run it? Again, I'd like to know that because it is owned by the taxpayers. It says in the in number 2 in the lease on these aren't broken down in pages. It might be a suggestion, but on number 2 it says it talks about. Okay, all right. The sole shareholder is the Board of Management of the Falls View Business Improvement Area. Now that is written down in here. The reality is it's owned by the taxpayer. I think that has to be included. The BIA does not own it. Under the analysts, the city will have a representative on the board. We own it. We should have the most board members, and we should have control for the taxpayer. Because at the end of the day, if this thing goes off and it doesn't work, and there is some issues around it, we have to protect the taxpayer. The convention center is great, the jobs it brings, all the things, the $93 million, which is more than what we're responsible for, quite frankly. We have to make sure that's protected. So under that same paragraph, under 7K, the expenditure is greater than $2 million. This dollar amount is out of line. In other words, they can spend up to $1.99 million without really coming back to the city. And I think that number is high. I don't know what, once it's built, that you'd have to spend that kind of money. But again, I think that's another paragraph in the lease that we should take a look at, just again to protect ourselves. I think that's a good idea. Under number 4, financial, staffing, and legal implications. I do have a concern that there are no city employees there. I don't see anything in the lease that really protects to support local businesses, the taxpayers' interest. So under financing, I think there's maybe something we could do there that would include to make sure that we are supporting local businesses, local workers, and making sure that the people of Niagara Falls benefit from the convention center in the form of maybe helping us with our unemployment, get people back to work. I think that's important. The city commitment, the $93 million, like I said, is more than what we're responsible, this group here, coming into Niagara Falls, and as it stands today under this lease, with very little control. The lease itself, I disagree with what's been said around taxes. I believe the city contribution and the public funds is in the millions. There's only one taxpayer. Whether you get the money from the city, whether you get it from provincial government, whether you get it from the federal government, there's still only one taxpayer. So the commitment from the taxpayer has been substantial. From the city's point of view, again, I think it's millions. You take a look at, there's no taxes going to be charged, no development fees, no planning application fees, no building permits, and this goes over the course of 25 years in accordance with the lease. So I think to say that the taxpayers haven't contribute isn't true. I know on the provincial side of the House, they have given $35 million, and they gave it up front. They gave the full amount of the $35 million and allowed, I believe, who's ever running it, the BIA, I would think, to collect the interest, which could be up to another $1 million. The federal government had put the money in, but they did something, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not saying I'm right on this. I have no problem being corrected. My understanding is the federal government also put money in, but they didn't do it all up front. They put it over time, and also with some language in place that will protect their investment if something happens down the road. So that's the two things. But at the end of the day, it's still taxpayers' money. I think that's the point I'm trying to make.
Councillor, if we could just get clarification on that point specific about the money from the province and the feds.
Just on the amounts?
Yeah.
Well, the amounts are correct, Your Worship, through you, Your Worship. The $35 million was given to the city, and the interest earned was in city control. And those dollars were used toward the construction of the convention center. So it did not go to the BIA. And when we talk about $93 million, it's the economic spin-off that the convention center will generate. So that'll benefit the industry for the reasons you just mentioned, to create jobs on a year-round basis, because conventions traditionally take place from the fall through to the spring. And so that was the whole intent, this private sector model. And that's why the federal government and the provincial government put their money on the table, because the private sector, between FMC and the BIAs, put $31.5 million on the table. And they said, hey, the private sector has a skin in the game. That's what we're going to contribute our funds. And in order to compete in this business, you have to have a facility that's kept up to date. You can't have it dripping. We are getting our staff trained on the commission and all the mechanical and electrical components of that facility, so they can go in and, again, work with NCCC to make sure that that equipment is kept up to date. The roof is a 25-year warranty. So we have done everything that we could, working in partnership with the private sector, so this thing runs and competes in the marketplace. And that's how it was established the way it was. But if it wasn't for the private sector putting the money on the table, the federal and provincial governments would not have provided those funds.
Thank you.
No, and I do appreciate your comment. I was familiar with the $31.5 million that has been put in. Obviously, I wasn't familiar with the $15 million that came from the BIA from the $1 million per year, which probably will go to one of my points that I'm going to talk about. The definition and interpretation. I really don't think there's enough language around the losses that could occur. And again, that may be a spot where you could say that the BIA has put $15 million in at $1 million per year to cover some of those things. That may be a spot that could go in for the in that particular part of the lease. Sorry.
Both BIAs gave pledge agreements shortly after council approved the model for the operation of this matter. Both the federal and provincial governments have advanced their funds on the basis that this thing is going to be operated on the model that council approved. The agreement here is designed to implement that model. One of the first questions you began with was, what do other municipalities do? A very great number of the other municipalities are having their convention centers and arenas run by private sector operations over which they have absolutely no control, that are profit-making companies. Both Oshawa and Kingston have their arena and convention center complexes run by private companies. Oshawa, it's Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, the people that own the Toronto Maple Leafs. Kingston was talking to them, but I think they went with another operator. They're entirely private companies. They've got no input in them at all. That's different from what you're doing here. You've got what we're trying to do is get the benefit of the expertise and motivation of the private sector, while at the same time maintaining some public sector control. That's what the idea behind this model is. And that is what everybody who's put money in here agreed was going to be the way it was going to be done at the outset. The document that is before you is simply recording what was agreed to back then. And that's, I think it's important to keep that in mind. We're at the tail end of a process that's been going on since 2006.
To your point, I actually agree with you that you're at the tail end. I think I said that very early in my presentation here when I was talking that the snowballs at the bottom of the hill. I understand that, but what I'm trying to do is say the most important thing here is to protect the taxpayer of Niagara Falls. And I went through the lease and found a few things that I don't think they're earth-shattering, but I do believe that there's something that we might want to take a look at. On the term,
excuse me one sec, just before we change, Councillor, just to that point.
To that point, I just want to clarify something to that point so that the residents aren't at home thinking that we're perhaps using their property tax dollars. Councillor Gates is absolutely right. There is one taxpayer. The only monies we're responsible for have any control over our property tax dollars. And I just want to reiterate this, Tim, because when I first got on council, that was one of the first committees I was put on, was the Convention Center Steering Committee. And quite frankly, their lawyer now was then our CAO at the time, Mr. Lustig. And we made it very clear at the day. We are not responsible for where the provincial and federal governments put their money, but we are responsible where property tax dollars go, and we did not use, and we are not using, and have pledged not to use property tax dollars that go to the core services that we provide to the residents. So I just wanted people at home to understand that, because I often confuse that too. There is one taxpayer, but there's only one pot of money that we're responsible for, and we didn't put any of the money we are responsible for towards this project. I just want that clarified.
Thank you.
Councillor Iannone, I believe I did cover that in the lease itself when I talked about what we're foregoing as far as taxes, but that's certainly something that I do understand, and I do appreciate you mentioning that. The term of the length of the directors that sit on the board is not touched in the agreement. I don't know if they stay there for life or whatever. I'm not sure. Maybe a length of time should be done. Obviously, city councils sitting on the board will be 4 years, I believe, I would think, would be term.
The appointment for council would be for 4 years, but they have annual nominations and elections on the board.
Okay. And I appreciate that, because I didn't see that in definition interpretations, Wayne. So I appreciate that bit of information. And when we take a look at that, I would like, again, because this has been a real opportunity on a go-for-it basis to create jobs, but I also think that it was a real opportunity in building it to create some good-paying jobs in our area and help our economy. So I wouldn't mind having the opportunity to get a list of the companies that provided some of the services to build the convention center, so we could take a look at them. I really think keeping the local content in a project as big as this is very, very important to the economic wealth of the community. The structure, again, I really believe, and I may be I may be wrong on this, but I really believe that we should take a look at the makeup of the structure, and I really believe that the mayor, at least a couple councilors, our CAO, Ken Todd, and maybe Serge would sit on that board, again, to make sure that the best interests of the city are taken care of and have a little bit of control on the board. That's something that I think we should look at. I already mentioned the fact about the $1.99 million without approval. And in closing, I really do appreciate the time to talk about it. I have looked at the lease, and I spent a lot of time. I had to take the time to meet with the mayor and with Ken and with the lawyer. So it wasn't something that I didn't take serious on coming in this late in the game, quite frankly, as being a councillor recently elected. But I believe that this is the biggest contract, the biggest lease the city of Niagara Falls would have entertained since a casino. Let's make sure we get it right for the benefit of all the stakeholders. And I do appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Gates. You did ask a couple of questions. Maybe we can get some direction. One specific, you did make mention of the makeup of the board of NCCC. Do we maybe, I don't know if, Serge, if you'd want to comment on that, and as well, the term limits vote, which was already addressed by Councilor Thompson, but maybe that. And the other thing, Mr. Felicetti can give us the answer as to a listing, or how we can provide a list of the local contractors that were involved in the construction.
Yeah, in terms of the board, what we could possibly do is email that board makeup to council, the 13 and how it breaks out. So we'll send that out to all of council tomorrow. We can do that. In terms of
it's right in the
actual local trades.
Oh, they're in the agreement. Excuse me.
Sir. Yeah, it's page 21 of the agreement. It's as clear as day.
In terms of the actual trades and companies that generated some work from it, we can provide that. But I just want to remind council, this was a design-build project. And so when you have a design-build project, it was the first time we ever did this, is usually you have to have, well, you do, you have your mechanical, your structural, your electrical partners already chosen when you make your submission. So so that was the makeup of in that regard. But they did have an opportunity to allow local companies bid, and there was some companies that got work for it. They also used some of the local union halls for the drywallers, the millwork, and some other areas as well. So they did use some of those local laborers. Okay. But we can get that information out as well.
Thank you. We're going to have the CAO address it, and then I've got Councilor Morocco.
Just to follow up on some of Councilor Gates' comments, one of the things that we'll be doing, and you can see some of the amendments in the agreement tonight, is that there's a financial reporting that will come to us and our staff. So our finance director will have an opportunity on an annual basis to look at that material. Also, there's provisions in the agreement that will allow our staff, probably our building inspection staff, to be able to go through the building whenever they like to ensure that building codes and standards are being met. So that us as a staff, what we'll be doing is on an annual basis be reviewing those documents, inspecting the facility, and if there's anything that we see that needs to be brought to council attention, we're certainly going to be doing that. So you'll have a chance in those financial agreements to see the level of the reserve. If there's any issues that we see with respect to building maintenance, Mr. Felicetti is part of that group. Although he's not on the board, he is there working with the staff on a regular basis so that we're aware of what the issues are. We do have a council rep serving right on the board itself. So I think there's plenty of opportunities to have that information come to you, and it'll be incumbent on us that if we see anything that's untoward or things that we think we should caution council on, it's our job to get that in front of you. At least we can have a debate around this council table at that time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And maybe we can get just the last two parts to Mr. Gates' questions. And we appreciate the due diligence that the new councilors did. We appreciate that. Yes. The other question he had asked was the one-time expenditures of greater than $2 million. I guess the question was, why that number and why not another number? And the other question he was asking regarding the configuration of the board, how is it configured? How is it created? Why is it the way that it was? So I don't know if somebody, would like to maybe answer those two questions, and then we'll go to Councilor Morocco for a question.
Configuration of the board came from the very first report that council approved. What's the name of that consultant, Serge? PKF. That report that was presented together by Mr. Lustig and Dr. Madovic came here together and presented a report. The composition of the board was set out in that report. and that's the composition of the board that appears in the agreement, with the one exception, that is the Bridge Commission. That is the only change.
The what?
The Bridge Commission. That's what changed from the, because the Bridge Commission refused to take up their seats, and they're now looking for a 13th party to join, and they're hoping that party will bring some money with them. As far as the $2 million, Mr. Lustig and I bounced back and forth various numbers on that, and that's one that they felt that was fair from the point of view of their need to operate the building themselves. They have to, at times, raise a considerable amount of money to buy things like, because they're going to have to outfit that building. They're going to have to do the fixtures. They're going to own all those fixtures, and that's what they felt was the freedom they need to operate this thing as a business, because the whole premise of the arrangement is to operate as a business. I can say, from having examined some of the leases of places like Oshawa, London, and Kingston, where they have private sector operators of their facilities, that number is a bit on the low side compared to what some of the other ones will allow the private sector operator, who they have no control of whatever to do in the building before they have to get permission from the owner of the building,
Okay.
which is in those cases London, Kingston, or Oshawa.
That good, Councillor Gates?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay, that's good.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the response that I got from staff, and it just gives me an idea where we're heading, that's all.
That's good. We
And
appreciate
and in fairness, I believe that coming in this late in the game, it's important for you to understand what we're doing on a go-forward basis. So.
You both did your diligence, did a good job, lots of good questions. And Councillor Morocco.
Your Worship, I just want to make sure, I support the lease. I just think that while we have an opportunity, even though this was done in 2008 and I wasn't a part of that, if there was an opportunity before it moved forward to have whatever additions added in. So, Mr. Todd, please, I appreciate the fact that Mr. Beeman, you took those points, and some of the points of the 5 that you went back and negotiated were some of the things that we discussed. So I greatly appreciate that. And if we not had deferred it, they might not have been included, and I think we might have missed the boat even in that. I think that I'm just maybe wishful thinking that I'd like to have a percentage added into a reserve fund that is dedicated to a reserve fund every year. And it's put in a city account for future use, and that's pretty simple. I don't see why that would be a big deal, so it's my idea.
Well, in the meantime, we do, unless there's any other comment right now, yeah, we've got a motion on the floor. And again, the motion, yes? We'll ask the CAO to comment.
Sorry, I just, and I believe Councillor Morocco wanted to deal with the issue, and we probably should be dealing with that as an amendment and getting that out of the way before we deal with the rest of the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Now, how would we do? We have a motion on the floor right now, so maybe I'll ask the clerk how. Councillor Thompson, you have a suggestion?
Well, first of all, this is extremely important that this get through as quickly as possible for obvious reasons that were said before. If there's an amendment, maybe staff could investigate that and go back to the Fallsview board, and there's no hesitation whatsoever in providing complete and total cooperation back and forth on this. This is not adversarial. This is not a situation where we don't have both sides working for the same objective. So I'd like to get this motion through. If there's an amendment that you want to bring back, I'm sure that that is not going to be a problem if it's going to help the cause and protect everybody involved. So let's move on.
Okay, thank you. The clerk would like to make comment.
Well, I don't really want to make comment, but I will make comment. I don't want to get into a procedural thing here, a big discussion about it. We've followed a practice of friendly amendments, which are technically not quite the way procedural law goes. I think what Mr. Todd's referring to is the fact that you could put a motion on the floor. Councillor Morocco could put a motion on the floor to amend the motion that's on the floor right now, which is to approve the agreement as written. So she would be making a motion for an amendment to that approval, saying that there would be an amount, I guess, under clause 7.22.
Well, maybe just before we do that, I'd be curious to get a feedback from Mr. Felicetti in terms of you're suggesting a percentage for a capital reserve fund. Is that what you're suggesting, an amendment?
Yes, Your Worship. I mean, it's written out here that they do expect to bring in $93 million. into the city in new expenditures every year. It's in the report from Mr. Filicetti. So I'm just wondering if there's a percentage of that we could actually look
Okay,
at?
just clarification on that, Serge? Serge?
Yes, just again, in terms of the $93 million, it's not directly into the convention center. It's the spin-off outside to the hospitality industry through accommodations, transportation services, attractions, restaurants. So it's not directly to the convention center, but that's the benefit of having the convention center in the community. It's an impact of $93 million annually.
Okay, then what percentage would you recommend then? You came up with the numbers and an overall to the destination, so what would you estimate that the convention center then itself would actually bring in?
I think, as maybe what was presented by Councillor Thompson, I think there's an urgency to get this operating agreement in place, not just for the liquor license, but we open in a couple of months. And so we need to have this operating agreement in place. And it gives us opportunities through, again, as the CEO indicated, an opportunity to go in, look at the facility. Our staff are going to be trained and commissioned on all the mechanical, electrical components of that building. And we'll see if there's an issue. And if there's an issue, we bring it forward to the board. And that's our right within the agreement to do that. And again, as operators and even the private sector protecting their investment, they have to compete with this facility against other jurisdictions. So you got to have a facility that's operational and is going to meet its objectives in terms of bringing in business. So there's items within the agreement, and if council so desires, once this agreement is in place, we can go back and approach the Falls BIA.
Thank you,
Mr. Filicetti. I'm not arguing that at all. I'm just saying that in a normal lease, most people would be paying rent. So as a landlord, we'd be receiving rent, base rent and different levels of rent that actually, as a landlord, you would be setting aside for capital expense. I'm only asking for a percentage. Maybe we can just look at if we can go back and negotiate some percentage that can go into a reserve fund every year, because as we know in any industry, it has its ups and downs. And if we can just have a consistent percentage, that would be greatly appreciated.
Well, you know what we maybe will do here in a second? I'm going to ask the clerk to comment. Maybe you can make a motion that staff investigate with the NCCC a contingency fund for a capital reserve fund, some sort of percentage, and we can make that. We'll see where it goes. First, I'm going to ask the clerk to make comment.
Well, a couple things. I mean, contingency. I mean, I think we all have contingencies in our daily life. We sock away money for certain things. I mean, sometimes we sock away as much as we can at a given time. And I think the governance model is based on the fact that you've got private sector people here that are going to be cognizant of that. They're going to be cognizant of the amount of money that's needed to operate and to maintain the facility. And what might be necessary on day one may not be necessary on year 15. So having a percentage that's fixed for the length of the agreement ties the hands of the governance body.
Okay, I've got Councillor Wing.
Thank you. I was thinking of suggesting that we try and get it written in that they have to maintain a capital reserve sufficient to ensure their ability to fulfill the terms of 7.2 and maintain it at all times. But, you know, if the city can inspect the property and if the city can inspect the books, then maybe what we just need is a direction to staff to ensure that sufficient reserves are being maintained and to report forthwith any concerns. And I think that way we don't need to tinker with the agreement. We can get it passed and done tonight, and that just might be the quicker, easier way of going about this.
Okay. So, Councillor Morocco, just before we're going to call the motion, or call the vote rather, did you want to put a motion on the table, a motion for amendment, or how did you want to deal with this?
Yes, Your Worship. I would like to see that we put in an amendment just to see if we can negotiate a percentage of their profits to be put into a reserve fund every year. Just to protect everyone. I think it's not going to be any big surprise in 10 or 15 or 20 years to the management right now that they have a multi-million-dollar roof or something. I mean, let's face it, it's not cheap. Because those dollars will already be put aside, and they won't be going back to the taxpayer. I just think it's a win-win for everybody. So,
okay.
How would that motion read, Dean? If you could help me with that, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Well, that the motion to approve is amended to amend 7.22, that in addition to that clause, that a percentage of profits be negotiated to be set aside in said reserve fund.
In a city account.
I would recommend that it be a percentage of cash flow rather than profit, because we can get into
Yeah.
a contest,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, to
Sure,
the
no
council,
problem.
through the chair,
Thank
that we
you.
get into a contest as to whether there's a profit. That's what I meant
Yeah.
by I don't know net, whatever. So I'd like it tied to a percentage of cash flow if there's going to be one, so that it's at least a number that we don't have to debate.
Okay,
Good,
so we've got
thank
the motion. Do we have a second for the motion for amendment? Okay, seconded by Councillor Gates. Any comment? Okay, this is,
So just to clarify what you're doing, you're now going to vote on the amendment. If the amendment fails, then you go back to the original motion.
okay. All those in favor?
Can we speak to the amendment?
Yeah, oh, I just said, any comment? Yeah, Councillor Inoue?
I understand wanting a safeguard. I get that, and I thought that we worked that into this agreement. What I don't want to see is tie ourselves to a percentage that may be too low, too high. Maybe give a motion to staff to go back, maybe speak to the NCC.
That's what this is. It
but,
doesn't
but it
speak-
doesn't. That's not what it said.
That's to go to staff to negotiate.
No, it says that to enact a percentage. So we haven't told them what percentage. We haven't given them any perimeter, just to negotiate a percentage. And if I'm remembering correctly, that didn't benefit one of the casinos at the time that the casino made the deal that X amount of a percentage of profit would be their revenue. And it fluctuated, it went back and forth. We talk about good times, we talk about bad times. What if we lock them into something that they can't afford to put into that time? They come to council, they get an amendment to reduce the percentage we told them to put in before we knew what their revenue would be. I think we're kind of jumping the gun here. I think we've protected ourselves. I don't want to see it set in stone right now. If it's to have staff go back and discuss the possibility with the NCCC, I don't have a problem supporting that. But having a percentage amount stated tonight, I have a problem with that.
Okay, I've got comments.
To that point, Your Worship, if they're coming back to make amendments because they can't meet a percentage, I think then we really have a serious problem on our hands with this company then running it.
Councillor Maves?
I'm having a problem with the whole thing. Councillor Gates mentioned that nobody makes a profit on this. I'm figured we're going to take a percentage of their loss. I think if we take a percentage of their cash flow, if they're not making any money, how can we take money from them? So I think the whole thing, I think we should probably just have staff investigate a possibility of maybe some revenue set aside if it's possible. But I can't see where we can tie their hands and say, you have to do this percentage or that percentage. And I just think it's redundant to even investigate something or set a percentage or any rules unless we know exactly what they can afford or what they can do. So I think it's out of the question to tie their hands any further. And I think we've got safeguards in the clauses in the lease. So I think possibly we can investigate something like that. Maybe staff can come back with a report. If there is some extra residue of money, fine. But I can't see us tying their hands any further, especially when we don't even know what the revenue is going to be. We're throwing out numbers here and percentages that won't even matter down the road, I don't think.
Thank you,
So
Councillor.
I think we just have to do an investigation thing.
And ask the CAO to comment.
Mr. Mayor, just before we get to the vote, I just want to make sure that it's very clear as to what we're voting on here. Before, when the agreement was here last time, these clauses were not in there. We've now included these specific clauses. So this is what you have in front of you tonight for approval. The tenant, which would be NCCC, shall maintain a reserve fund calculated to ensure the tenant has funds in hand to discharge the requirements of Article 7.2.1. 7.2.1 says the tenant, which is NCCC, shall, at its own cost and expense, during the entire term of the agreement, keep in good order and condition the project, all equipment, fixtures, landscaping, curbs, walls, roofs. It goes on and on and on. So that's what's in there, and that's what we're recommending for approval tonight. If you want to go further than that, approve the amendment. If you like what I just read, turn down the amendment and approve the original motion.
Okay, I'm going to now call the motion. This is the motion for the amendment. All those in favor?
Well, in fairness, read out the amendment so it's clear, because I don't think one of the councilors understood what he said.
Okay, the clerk will ask him to reread the amendment, and then we'll take the vote.
Now I got to figure out what I said the first time. That a percentage of cash flow be negotiated for the reserve fund contained in 7.2.2.
Okay? Everybody understand the motion? All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, the motion is defeated. And now we'll deal with the original motion, which is the recommendation in the report. Everybody understand? Okay, all those in favor? And opposed? Okay, one opposed. All right, thank you. Now, to ratification of Committee of the Whole. Councillor Iannone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The following items are to be ratified from tonight's meeting of the Corporate Services Committee. The Committee of the Whole Committee. The Committee of the Whole minutes of December 13th, 2011 meeting be approved. Under reports that the issue of chairmanship of the Committee of the Whole be deferred to the end of the meeting. We have then deferred it to the next meeting, so that isn't correct. Under MW 2011-05, DWQMS roles and responsibilities, that the report, presentation, and associated documents be received and filed. Under MW 2011-02, the Regional Niagara Waste Collection Contract proposed containerized waste collection, that Council support the recommendation at the Regional Council to expand the multi-res bag limit to 12 bags or 1 bag per unit to a maximum of 12, and that Council refer the issue of the containerized collection waste to staff for more information, including what's being done in other municipalities. Under MW 2011-03, Niagara Falls Historical Museum, Lundy's Lane Battlefield Legacy Project update, that the city engage the consulting engineering services of R&R Associates Limited to the complete and required municipal class environmental assessment for the gateway walkway feature of the Niagara Falls Lundy's Lane Legacy Project, Lundy's Lane Legacy Project, and that $80,000 be allocated for the EA from the Lundy's Lane Historical Museum expansion, Niagara Falls History Museum project approved in the 2010 capital budget. Under RNC 2011-1, leash-free dog park, that the development of a leash-free dog park at Stanford Center Volunteer Fires Association Park be approved in principle, and that the Council refer the development of a leash-free dog park to the 2011 capital budget process, and that a Friends of Niagara Falls Leash-Free Dog Park Committee be developed to assist with fundraising. Under TS 2011-08, the transit adjustments to the service the new Walmart Smart Centers Plaza Oakwood Drive, that Council endorse the proposed transit route adjustment plan to service the new Walmart Centers Plaza on Oakwood Drive, and approve the Transcab service for the Stanley Avenue South Corridor, and 2, that the Transcab service be reviewed within a 6-month period.
So moved.
As the chair, I will so move it, but there's a portion I'm going to vote against because I couldn't vote downstairs. I didn't vote downstairs.
Okay, seconded by Councilor Pietrangelo. Comment, Councilor Wynn?
Yes, I'd like to go on record as being opposed to MW 2011-03.
Mr. Mayor? And I'm opposed to the Transcab service being renewed for a 6-month period, but I support the service into the new Walmart Center.
Okay. So noted. All right. So we've got the motion seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Ratification of in-camera recommendations. There are no in-camera recommendations. Move on to the consent agenda. Councilor Pietrangelo.
Thanks, Your Worship. Under the consent agenda, we have the municipal accounts. I failed to mention that there's 2 checks. One made out to St. Michael High School, which is where I work, number 342780, and the other one is a wire transfer to the Niagara Catholic District School Board, and I would have a conflict with both. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Carrio.
Just to state again, I have the conflict on 201105, but I'll move the agenda.
Okay, moved by Councilor Carrio, seconded by Councilor Pietrangelo. Any comment by Councilor Wang?
I just wanted to comment on TS 2011-07. I didn't know whether you wanted to take it out or just let me...
If you'd like to comment it, we can withdraw it. We can pull that one separate.
Please, yeah.
Are there any other items that anyone would like to speak to? Okay, then we're going to withdraw TS 2011-07 for the on-street receptacle bins and pedestrian barriers. And there's a motion and a seconder to move the rest of the consent agenda. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. All right, Councilor Wing, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, on page 2 it notes that the proponent being recommended provided a number of added value options such as variations of receptacle types to meet the diverse street architecture of the city's BIAs. And I know that some of the BIAs have put their own money on the table to put up street furniture in their area. In fact, I was on the Lundy's Lane BIA when they put their distinctive red and black and certain type style of street furnishings out. Have there been any discussions with the BIAs yet? Is there an extra charge to the BIAs for having a specific type? I just want to get a handle on where we're at with, because I sit on 2 BIAs and I haven't heard about this yet.
I'm not sure. I'd ask Carl, did you want to address that, please?
Yes.
Mr. Dren?
Through the mayor, no, we haven't discussed them with the BIAs as of yet. We were waiting for this to be passed, and then we would approach the BIAs. Again, Lundy's has their own street hardware, so we wouldn't approach them, but we would approach all the others downtown and so on. This company offers some really nice decorative units that may fit into landscape and street hardware, and therefore that's why we're recommending them.
Would there be an additional cost to the BIAs for having a fancier type?
Mr. Dren.
With respect to additional cost, there is no cost for this at all. What it might be is, depending on whether something has one-side advertising capability or two-side, there might be a slight reduction in what we get as revenue on it. So there is no cost to the municipality or the BIA for the installation of these.
Okay, and my other comment is, I'm of 2 minds on this. On one hand, I do support the revenue generation opportunity, but on the other hand, I remember when we were considering the sign bylaw that's now in place, we were really aiming a lot of things at sort of decluttering our public spaces and reducing the visual distractions, especially those posed by third-party advertisements. And somebody pointed out to me then that these are the ones we have at present, the OMG installations. Well, actually, it was a little bit hypocritical of the city to be trying to get third-party advertising on public lands reduced when we were allowing the very same thing with the advertising on the recycling and especially the pedestrian handrail barriers. And I think those are the ones I really have a problem with. Recycling, I can understand, it costs money to perform the recycling service, and this is a way of offsetting those costs and enticing somebody to take care of it for us. But it's pedestrian handrail. Those things look like they're just there to generate advertising revenue for the company that installed them. Is there any possibility we can leave off that section of the contract?
Mr. Dren?
I can investigate that through the chair again. I can investigate it, but it was part and parcel of the entire RFP. With respect to handrails, we don't allow them just to put them anywhere. They're based on a criteria that says you need to block pedestrians for a safety reason. So we wouldn't allow them to do it unless it was necessary. The other thing too is looking at the cost of all these units. In the case of 12 units, if they were all recycle bins, it would cost the municipality probably around $24,000 to put this out, and we're getting at no cost. Handrails are probably half of that. So again, trying to weigh out the two, but we're very there's only about 5 handrails out there right now, and we're very strict as to how they go in because we recognize that we won't allow them to put them on angles. They have to go straight. They have to be there. They're there for their intent. And so we can investigate whether you want handrails or not, but it was part of this RFP.
Okay. Is there any other comments on the report? Okay. Can I have a motion to receive it? Approve the recommendation. Councillor Ioannoni, second by Councillor Thompson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. It's approved. Next up, resolutions. We have 4 in your agenda plus 2 in your addendum.
First one you've already approved.
We've already approved the first one. So the second, therefore be resolved, the City of Niagara Falls attests that it will continue to contribute its share of the required funding for the Infrastructure Stimulus Fund and the Recreational Infrastructure Fund. I will need a motion. Pardon me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The following 5. Okay. Okay, so we'll move the following 5 resolutions. Councillor Ioannoni, second by Councillor Thompson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, thank you. Bylaws. Can I have a motion to introduce the bylaws and the bylaws be given a first reading? Sorry.
2011.
Okay. Clerk?
There's no additional bylaws.
I was thinking it. He answered without me saying it. He knew to answer that. That was very, very good. Motion, Councillor Peter Angelo, seconded by Councillor Gates. All those in favor? Okay. Council's heard the motion. No, we already did that one. The clerk reads the bylaws the first time.
He's learning on
I am. Well, he just handed me the blue sheet, so I haven't had a chance to pre-read it. Mr. Clerk.
Did you vote on the first reading?
We did. Yeah.
Although I think Councillor Morocco had something to say.
Oh, Councillor Morocco, do you have comment?
Worship, regarding the bylaws, if I could have 1104 and 1111 done separately. I'm okay passing everything but those two.
Okay.
Well, our practice has been that you just indicate that you're in favor of the bylaws with the exception of those two, and we'll note it in the minutes.
I reversed it. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So are we good on that one?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we need to vote on the first reading.
Okay. Oh, you know, I know. He just handed it to me. You know, he wouldn't let me have it earlier. All right. So all in favor? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bylaws 2011-01 to 2011-12 read a first time.
I have a motion. Thank you. Motion by Councillor Peter Angelo, second by Councillor Carrio. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
Bylaws 2011-01 to 2011-12 read a second, third time, and passed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. New business. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Ionone, Councillor Wing.
Thank you, and I apologize. I have 3 items here that we haven't been together for a month, so I would like to deal with them. The first one is a very pleasant situation, and the former council will remember that we had 3 ladies here, Anne Louise Branscombe, Ann Kemp, and Janie Palmer, several months ago with respect to the building fund for the FACS, Family and Children's Services, and that they were starting out on their campaign to put up a suitable enlargement of the facility in the south end of the city to make it suitable for their efforts with the Family and Children's Services. The impressive part about these 3 ladies who are dedicated to this community, and certainly not only to facts but many different areas as leading citizens in this community, they didn't ask the council for any money, and they just wanted to make us aware of what was going on, and I would like to send a resolution of congratulations to FACS and to those ladies specifically, but I also would like to have a letter of sincere thanks sent to Shelley McBain and John McBain for their substantial contribution to that building fund. So it gives me a great deal of pleasure to ask that those resolutions be approved, and I would so move, and hopefully we can have a second.
Okay. We've got a motion by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Ionone. And I do want to mention, too, I did hear that you were instrumental in helping secure the final funding, Councillor Thompson, so kudos to you for that as well. Councillor Ionone?
And that's what I was going to say. Isn't it a benefit to have someone on a council or someone you've asked to help that can make one phone call and get $750,000? And I wanted to congratulate Councillor Thompson for making that move.
Sure. Any other comment? All right, we'll call the motion. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
My second item has to do with a left-hand turn off of the Rainbow Bridge. For the last 15 years, there have been committees and BIAs working on trying to convince the Bridge Commission, the regional government, and the provincial government to participate in having a left-hand turn as you come off the Rainbow Bridge. As you know now, You have to go straight up. You can see the falls on your left-hand side. People look and they try to get to the falls, and yet many of them end up at the information booth in St. Catharines asking how they get to the falls. It's a very unpleasant situation, and if you recall, if you've been around for a while, you recall that there used to be a turnaround there where no matter where you came off the bridge, you could go on the turnaround and cut off anywhere you wanted to get access to the falls and the tourist area. The Bridge Commission has been steadfast that they were not interested. In fact, within the last several months, they come out and said, we're not interested in participating. Go up the Fort or Robert Street, cut off to Victoria Avenue, go across the bridge, come back down the Robert Street to 420 if you want to get to the falls, and we'll help you sign it that way. That was completely unacceptable to all of the BIAs, which had supported a resolution with respect to this to work towards this, and there is no financial commitment to anybody at this point. We're looking for a resolution of support because we've had the first indication that the Bridge Commission is interested in the last proposal that has been made by the group, and there are representatives from all of the BIAs on that group to consider the last proposal. And they thought it would be appropriate to have a motion from this council saying they support the group to have a left-hand turn, which is really going back to where it was years ago, and the installation of light and proper turning lanes off the bridge. There are also some safeguards that would be put there if the traffic were excessive, where the traffic would be restricted and have to go up, which may happen on very busy weekends. But if you look at the traffic from the U.S. these days, you know it's not going to be a traffic jam, at least for a while. So I would make a motion that we, and in fact maybe the clerk and Mr. Filicetti could formulate the appropriate response to the Bridge Commission and to this committee. And he is on the committee and would know exactly what appropriate individuals to notify, that we are in favor of a left-hand turn off of the Rainbow Bridge to facilitate access to the falls and all of the tourist areas, Clifton Hill, Falls View, and to the Niagara Parks Commission. So I would so move that.
Okay, moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Pietrangelo. Any other discussion of the motion? Okay, all those in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you very much for that. That's a long time coming. The final topic is one that I really should have been dealing with a long time ago. It's one that has been brought to my attention recently, and I can't tell you how many times I've sat in the Treasurer's office with people who are in trouble with their tax arrears. And there was one that actually Councillor Iannone referred it to Mr. Todd, where a very sad story where people were in a single-family home in arrears in their home, and the interest rates were so excessive on their arrears that they were going to have trouble and difficulty even staying in their home. This is something, if you're on council, you're going to get on a regular basis, and the common request is, can you forgive the interest? Well, you can't forgive the interest, because if you forgive it for one person, you have to forgive it for everybody, so that's a non-starter. So that gave me a lot of thought until I realized that we have had in place an interest rate of 15% for many, many years. And we did it for good reason at the time. I think the rate of interest at the bank at that time was about 9%, and we were being utilized as a bank, the municipality. Don't pay your taxes for 2 years, and then after 2 years, use the city because it was inexpensive, and then you could use the city as your banking facility and take advantage. And we were the ones that were suffering. As a result, with high interest rates at the time, we established the 15% interest rate, and it's been in place, and there really hasn't been any discussion or debate and on that issue. Now we have an interest rate of 3 or 4 or 5% at this time, and we're still gouging with a 15% interest, and it's something that the municipality and the council has the right to fluctuate periodically according to what is fair and equitable, rather than this Shylock system that exists, and we're all concerned and guilty as a result of that being in existence. And I'm not suggesting any rate or anything else. I'm suggesting that we refer this back to our staff and to finance to determine what they're doing in other municipalities in this very difficult time. And the reason I bring it up is because of the climate we're in today. People are suffering, people are out of work, people are having these difficulties, and then we slam them with a 15% interest. It's obvious. I'm sorry I didn't think about it earlier. We have the right to fluctuate that on an annual basis, and I'm not suggesting anything as far as retroactive. I'm asking for a report to come back to council to make some suggestions on a rate that is fair and equitable for 2011. This should not be a revenue source for the municipality. It should be something that we utilize to make sure we get our taxes, that we're not being utilized as a financial institution, and we treat the citizens fair and equitably as far as the rate is concerned. So I'm asking that we have a report back on that.
We have motion, Councilor Thompson, second by Councilor Iannone. You want to speak to it?
Yes, and I'd like to thank Mr. Harrison for the response. I know we all read that, and I have a really hard time sleeping after I read something like that. So if there's a possibility that we can maybe help people who have been hit by the recession and cannot float that high interest rate anymore, maybe it's something we need to look doing, because what we don't want to do is be forcing families out of their houses. So I don't want the person who emailed us to think that we don't have a heart, or we don't. It was just out of our control to do something to help them.
Yeah, it's probably not a bad idea that we have a policy so many points above prime. This way it fluctuates with the market rather than being fixed. And I also know it's a big source of revenue, $2 to $3 million a year from our 15%. What did you call it? Yeah, $2 to $3 million, I believe.
We budget $2.5 million a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Shylock. Councilor Iannone.
Yeah, but then, Mr. Mayor, we get the residents in the situation. We're not getting that interest from that family if they can't pay it anyway. So you can't get blood from a stone. So, I mean, you got to do something.
Yeah. Councilor Carrió.
Thank you, Your Worship. I brought this up a while back. I'll certainly support the motion, and I'm not sure whether everyone knows it, but you don't start to pay any of your tax arrears until you've paid all the interest. So if you zing these people for 15 points on every unpaid dollar, you don't start to even touch the balance of the taxes until all the interest is paid first.
Okay.
That's Todd Harrison's fault.
It's all his fault.
He was trained by the best.
That's right. Any other comment? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Councilor Iannone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recently, there's been articles in the paper in regards to the new deficit that the NHS is projecting they're going to run for 2011-2012. They're expecting a $5 million higher deficit than they projected before. That is good money management, I'm telling you. They originally expected $2 million. Now they're going to have a projected $7 million deficit. MPP Crater has come out to say because of this, he is again going to try to get his government to have an investigator come in and look at the NHS and the governance. So I've created a new resolution because we've sent so many. They're not listening, and that's part of my resolution. And you only hope that with now this exacerbated deficit that maybe they'll admit they need to come in and they need to take a second, third, fourth look at it, and asking you perhaps maybe when you're at the region, talk about it again there. And I have, whereas in October 2008, the NHS suffered a non-confidence vote by its medical staff, and whereas the NHS has continued to operate at a deficit and is continuing on that path with a projected $7 million deficit for the 2011-2012 fiscal year, and whereas the hospital improvement plan for the NHS continues to call for the elimination of essential services such as pediatrics and maternity at the GNGH site, and whereas the leadership of the NHS and the HNHB Lynn and the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care has not responded to these concerns to date, and whereas the NHS, by continuing to implement its restructuring plan without the important dollars factored in for the transportation costs that are crucial for the residents of Niagara Falls to access this new regional hospital, be it resolved that the City of Niagara Falls endorse the request that the provincial government appoint an independent investigator to conduct a review of the management of the NHS.
Okay, we have motion, second by Councillor Wing. Any discussion on the motion?
I just want to highlight, Mr. Mayor, that as we've gone through the HIP and as we've gone through the public meetings, as we've stood here ad nauseum, I think it's really sad to see the NHS talk about it being the overtime and sick time of the staff they work to death because they're understaffed being the cause of their deficit. God forbid you look in the mirror and say perhaps it's the management of the dollars we got coming in. And again, they're citing the province for underfunding, and hopefully MPP Crater will deal with that also. But it just crushes me to see that the projections we made are dead on from what the doctors told us, from what the nurses told us, to now they have overtime and sick time and overtime is the reason why they're $7 million in debt. There's got to be a huge problem that the province has got to see. The fact that they're ignoring us is the bigger problem.
Well, and I'm sure, too, the fact the overtime, I'm sure there's a relationship to our emergency ward and the fact that they have to bring in doctors from northern Alberta. They have to put them up, lodge them, give them from the U.S., stipends, there's bonuses, and I don't know if they're rolling that into overtime or how they're showing it, but I understand they're spending several millions of dollars extra just to keep our emergency department from collapsing. And I also know there's a lack of continuity and congruity, and it's a real sad situation because we had a fully functional emergency department, the most efficient in the region at the time, until the NHS decided that it wasn't good enough. And today, here we are, several millions of dollars later, and we have a worse situation, and the sad thing is we don't have any continuity in our emergency department. Aside from maybe one doctor, it's a revolving door, and it's a real sad situation that was created here. And you're right, we have to do something about it, and I fully support this, and I'm already lobbying at the region as well, because we've got a big problem, and more money is not the solution. You can't keep saying more money. I was always told if you made $1 million and you spent $1 million, you're still broke, and you can put as much as you want into a sieve. It's not going to hold. And the problem, I don't think, is a money problem. I think it's more of a management problem, and I think you're absolutely right, and I'm glad that you're bringing this forward and drawing attention to it. Is there any other discussion on this motion? Councillor Thompson?
Yes. A lot of people think we're still fixed on the hospital in St. Catharines. That's gone by the boards, and if you read some of the articles and some of the critiques, the one that came out of Queen's Park, I don't know whether you took the time to read that in the last week on your website. The Toronto Star puts out a critique, and this was on the LHINs across the province, and it was very interesting. Some were doing well, and some were not doing well. And I'm asking you this, maybe you can find this out. It was brought to my attention in the last week, where all of the doctors have given up their privileges at the NHS, and they have what they call hospitalists who work there now, and apparently there were 5. There's apparently resignation of a couple of them who are leaving because they said that this was not a safe situation. That was extremely shocking when that was brought to my attention. I just wonder if you could confirm or have that put to rest one way or the other, because that's where the care in the facility really is important. So if that is happening, that's another situation where dollars are going to be spent to artificially bring people in to pretend they're doing the job, and also create a situation which isn't appropriate in the hospital.
I heard the same thing that you allude to, and it's unfortunate that there's just so much fallout from decisions that are being made and the way things are being operated. It's really, really sad, and that's why we need to have a provincially appointed ombudsman, as it was mentioned in the past by Councillor Wing. We need this investigated. I agree. We've got some problems here, and maybe this is just too big for them to handle. I definitely think we need someone to come in here and straighten things out. Okay, we've got Councillor Wing up next on our new business. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, did we not take the vote? Oh, I'm sorry. We had the motion, right? Seconded? All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Wing.
Okay, and I'd like to thank you for convening the recent roundtable discussion with regards to the community's concerns with coyotes in the urban area and how to manage the concerns that are arising. It was very positive and very educational, and I'd just like to review quickly a few highlights from the verbal portion of the Ministry of Natural Resources presentation. I was busy taking notes as they were talking. The eastern coyote, which is the only wild canine which is in this area, is only 30 to 45 pounds. They are extremely healthy right now, and because they have healthy coats, they look a lot bigger than they really are. And I think anybody who ever tried to bathe a cat can appreciate how much fur can make an animal look larger than it is. They don't mate with domestic dogs. The howling is not when they're hunting. They howl to stake out their territory and show one another where they are. Intentional feeding by humans is the major contributing factor to coyotes coming into the urban area. Free-ranging pets, especially cats, are unfortunately a major attraction, and bird feeders that attract small mammals really bring them in as well. Small mammals like mice are their preferred food, and I can't remember what the figure was, 90 or 95% of their diet is actually mice and voles and similar types of animals. And we've got this cycle going on where human feeding leads to habituation, which leads to the coyotes not having a fear of humans and exhibiting some bold behaviors, and that's when you get the possible threats to human safety. And if anything arises, the MNR stressed calling the local police. But as a result of that discussion, we had some positive things come out of it, and one of them was I agreed I would request tonight that staff develop a bylaw to deter the feeding of coyotes and rodents within the urban boundary. So that's my first resolution, is asking staff to develop that bylaw.
Okay, motion by Councillor Wing, second by Councillor Thompson. Any discussion?
I don't want to be the bylaw guy enforcing it.
Okay. Pardon me? Yeah. All those in favor? Oh, hold on. We've got
I just
Mr.
wanted
Beaver.
to speak to that particular instance. It may be that we encounter some problems enforcing this bylaw, but I think it's important from the point of view of dealing with the coyotes and helping the wildlife people for council to make the statement, to make it clear that this is, and it's something along the lines of the poop and scoop bylaw. It's a moral suasion thing. I mean, how many guys have we prosecuted for? But it eventually, you try to, kind of build up the momentum in the community to support the initiative. That's the principle. And I hear Councillor Ioannoni's concerns, but I would urge council that that's not a reason not to have the bylaw if we're going to help with this instance to try to reduce the unfortunate interactions between coyotes and people.
Okay. You heard the motion. All those in favor? Thank you. Also of interest, too, Ms. Grandoni's, to this point, letter, she mentions about a coyote attack on a farmer in Vineland, and as well a coyote attack on a child on the Kaler Road area, where she was rescued by a witness. So as much as we can make light of the situation, it can turn dangerous very quickly. And it's good that we're aware and that we're educating the public, and this is a good start to put some teeth into the bylaw. So thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, and actually, while we're talking about educating the public, one of the other things that came out of that discussion is coyotes may be habituated to human voices, but they are still afraid of noise, and it was suggested that anybody who's out walking their dog at night, let's say, carry even a pan of some pebbles in a pop can and shake it. Just anything that makes noise. A whistle, blowing the sort of whistle that you get with a life jacket. That sort of thing.
Really bothersome too.
So that was the other part of it. And secondly, I would like staff to bring back a report on the possibility of increasing the numbers of dogs and cats permitted per household in cases where all the animals are spayed or neutered, all are vaccinated annually, good animal husbandry is practiced. If somebody has a large house on a large urban lot, why would we limit them to 3 when we unfortunately have the problem where people without spayed and neutered animals are flooding our shelters, and we've got cat colonies out there. I mean, we really want to get this population under control, and if there's no good reason to limit somebody to 3, why would we not set the limit a little bit higher? So I just would like staff to look into this possibility and bring back a report on it.
And municipal dog licenses too, possibly is one of your requirements? Or you said that to be spayed, neutered?
Spayed, neutered, vaccinated annually, and good animal husbandry.
And dog license
practice.
too?
We already have a requirement for dog licenses.
Okay.
This is sort of stuff. This is just dealing with the numbers of cats.
Okay, we have a motion. Pardon me?
Can I have your $20 for your license?
It's coming. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Councillor Carrio. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Anything else, Councillor Wayne? No? Councillor Peter Angelo.
Thanks, Your Worship. And I just had a question in regards to the proposed access to the Gale Centre. And I guess it would be through you to Mr. Holman. Mr. Holman, I'm just wondering about the rest of the stretch of Stanley Avenue that would be south of Thorlstone Road. I understand that the region is going to be responsible for putting the access into the new Gale Centre, which means that they're going to tee the intersection of Thorlstone and Stanley Avenue. But I also believe that the region owns that section of Stanley Avenue that's south of Thorlstone Road. And right now, I mean, in my opinion anyway, it's pretty much in disrepair from Morrison Road all the way north to Thorlstone Road. So I guess question 1 would be, is that in the cards to be done along with the intersection and the entranceway into the Gale Centre? And then question 2 would be, if it's not, can we send a resolution out of the region and ask them to incorporate it into the capital works this year? Because in my opinion, that stretch of road should be done.
Mr. Mayor, that section has been identified in their forecast for, I believe it's 2013. We have some infrastructure that needs to be replaced in that section, so it's not likely that it will be included as part of the Thorlstone Road extension, but it's definitely on our radar screen, and I can speak to that when I provide more information on our 10-year capital needs forecast.
Will they be doing any of that section south of Thorlstone Road?
I believe the scope of the project goes back as far as the old rail line, so that section in front of, I think it goes past George Street.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Councillor Carrio?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a report or a file from a small business owner in the Drummond Road area whose business was severely affected by the construction, delays, entrance problems. He did everything that he was supposed to do according to what the city had suggested for him to do to try and make a claim, and he's getting nowhere. So I'd like to take the file and turn it over to the staff and see if there's anything they can do to help.
Okay. I believe, does that go through the clerk's office, or we'll get a comment from the clerk?
Well, I think the claim's probably already been filed by the claimant. I mean, that's the process that they were asked to do, but they were probably denied, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So do we need a motion to receive this? Okay, motion from Councillor Carrio.
I don't think so. I'll just give it to them. If there's no action, then we'll come back to council.
Yeah? Okay. All right, good. Is there any other new business? Motion for adjournment? Councillor Maves, Councillor Morocco, all in favor? All right, thank you.